Well, it took until the very last day of the group stage to finally eliminate one team from contention for playoffs, but now it's officially happened. Commiserations to Magic Squad after a hard-fought debut in Brazilian Tier 1, but it simply isn't to be when you run into the monster that is FaZe Clan, new roster additions or otherwise. It simply was their day. But Gibson, we started off with a 3-0 half for FaZe Clan, and then it went the other way for the rest of the half. I was starting to get deja vu from that NIP game, but luckily they turned it around.
You were willing it into existence the same way that Whippet and I were, because you love to see a long game in games that matter. And I think we got to give a lot of credit to Magic Squad. The season that they've had, the conditions that they've played under, and then to come in on a day like this against FaZe Clan and almost secure that spot only for a horrible bit of timing. For FaZe Clan, though, even though the game was a messy one, I think it's a big one for them because it showed them that they got over the demons from yesterday. And sometimes a win, no matter what way it comes, can mean more than any other win. So I think for FaZe, that was a big one to get over the line.
Yeah, and with FaZe, sure, it went to overtime once again, but they didn't need anything. As soon as they got that 6th round on the board, they were confirmed. They maybe got to hide just a little bit of strats going forward towards this playoff bracket that's going to be coming up next week. But now for the side of Magic Squad, you kind of have to think what is in the future, what's in the cards for the future of this roster, because maybe there's going to be roster moves, maybe there's going to be something, but overall, at the end of the day, they are going to get to have this wonderful offseason where they can hopefully fix some of the mistakes that we've seen, because they have shown they can go toe-to-toe, and they're right there on the line with these top-level squads.
Cyber had a wonderful day in the office for his side as well. Handy second up as well. Absolutely stellar individual performances, but the fact is, we saw this go all the way in the depths of overtime, and individual effort might not be enough for FaZe moving forward. They still got that place confirmed, but I don't think it's job done for them yet. There's still a lot of room to grow as a team as they move to the next phase of the region.
There's going to be a lot of things to talk about FaZe Clan for, because we're going into playoffs and presumably into the major. That's where a lot of people will expect them to be. But let's talk about Magic Squad, simply because this is the last time that we're going to end up doing it here. Some of you might be confused and thinking, wait, they're not totally eliminated at this point. Well, NIP and Los 1 play later in the day, and at that point, regardless of the result of that matchup, Magic Squad simply will not have enough points to currently keep the third place position that they now have. So it will be one of the two of them vaulting over Magic Squad at the end of the day, and there really isn't anything else that can be said about them. It looks like Hornetal will remain the statistical leader and maybe even still retain a top 5 position once this group stage is all said and done. But gentlemen, Gibson, we'll start with you and then we'll go to Whippet. Just what are you thinking about it, Magic Squad's overall debut in Tier 1?
I think there's obviously some issues that they need to iron out, which is what you expect when you come to this level. The season being shorter than usual as well doesn't help newer squads. You know, you look at the way leagues went in the past when it was just one large group instead of 2. You've got way more games, way more time to fix problems. But there are a lot of positives, Jacob. You know, yesterday you put us under the bus. You said, were they a one-player team? Was Hornetal the only person making them relevant? I think after today, no. I think everybody stepped up to the plates, and if they can just keep building and use this next week and a half to keep building on their teamwork and play, I wouldn't be surprised if they made an LCQ run.
It's a team that has a very good and effective front line. However, they have an issue where sometimes it's not fully awake at the start of the game and they grow into a matchup. We saw that today in particular, where I believe it was Hate took a little bit to get going. But when they're all firing, they are a very dangerous team. They forced FaZe, one of the giants of the region, into overtime on this final day. There's a lot of potential for them to grow, and they could be a massive threat as they move to that LCQ.
Well, hats off to them for actually coming into what surely was a difficult scenario for them, only having one player remaining from the original team that was picked up as Magic Squad from several months ago, and then to come in and go toe-to-toe with some of the most high-profile teams in Brazil. Congratulations to them for what they were able to accomplish, but unfortunately, this is where their mainline Brazilian League performance will come to a close. They'll still be in last chance qualifiers and have the opportunity to still make it to Copenhagen, but I think after the week that they've had, it would be good if they were able to dial it back a little bit and prepare for what's to come then. Gentlemen, thank you very much for the first cast. We'll be back in a little bit. As for Connor and myself, we've got an MVP to talk about. We have a team that actually won this game, and we will continue to be singing their praises, especially the guy who's been their front man for the past 1.5 to 2 years. Cyber really earned his MVP on today.
Oh yeah, Cyber, this is what you expect to see with the good old-fashioned phase. Guess what? Cyber's gonna do pretty well almost every single lobby he loads up into. Today, he had that X factor. He had that ability to really pop off at any given moment, but was also consistent enough that you're not going to say, oh, if he didn't get a 3K, what did he do? 71% cost means he was involved in almost every single round. It was a massive factor in FaZe's success, almost where you could say, hey, if Cyber was kind of mid, we might have seen Magic Squad still be in contention.
I think everyone on FaZe honestly earned their stripes today because we highlighted KDS at the very start of the day. He was a little slow on offense, and then when he managed to insta-lock Yana when they swapped halves, he, I think, went all the way up to at minimum 10 and 10, 10 and 9 by the end of the game, and he wasn't whiffing nearly as many of those fights as he was from very early on in the stage. Handy was the one who had the highest overall rating, but again, for somebody like him who earned MVP honors back in week 1, we'd like to be able to give it to someone else this time, and we just thought Cyber was a bit more deserving. But even in a case like Vidaking, now when he's a flex IGL, when he was a flex IGL during the Invitational, we had a lot of questions about that and his decision making and the way that FaZe Clan themselves were playing. Now that he's playing as a support IGL, that really seems like where he is meant to play, and it means that Souls doesn't have to retain the hard breach roles nearly as often. Is this the role set that FaZe Clan need to keep on succeeding? Because right now it looks like it's working.
Yeah, if it's working, then why fix it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Especially when, sure, you can say they shouldn't have had a couple of games go to OT, and they, in theory, could have been in that first seed, considering that they beat Liquid and El Clasico. You can say there's always room for improvement. However, when they're pushing through for the rest of this playoff bracket and trying to really lock in a Copenhagen spot, you still need to focus more so on the teams that might be a little bit down lower for that upset potential. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you kind of can send away Liquid and W7M. They're not going to be in contention for the possible LCQ and Phase 1 slots. They'll just be punching the ticket straight on through. So with FaZe having good results still against those lower end teams, just keep rolling.
Well, FaZe Clan are now on the side of the bracket as W7M. If they were to win the first part of the quarterfinal game, if they were to win their quarterfinal game next weekend, then they would go and play W7M in the upper bracket semifinals, but they would be playing a team from Group A, and that's where we head to for game number 2. This is the first of the 2 Group A decider games. Basically, every single game today is in some form or fashion a win or go home scenario, and now it's time for LFO against Tropicals. Now, this is certainly a puzzle because LFO currently sit in 5th place in the group. Tropicals are in 4th. Neither are eliminated because of how close this group has been since the start. LFO only have 2 points. They have 1 win, and they still have the possibility of getting up to 3rd if they were to get as many points as possible in this game.
Yeah, when you said puzzle, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be puzzling, because here on the tail of the tape, we've got a pretty solid attacking team versus a solid defensive team in LFO versus Tropicals. But then on the flip side of the coin, we have probably the most mid-off that you will ever see. The worst defensive team against the worst attacking team. So it's almost like this game is going to be 2 smashed together, and it's going to be really awkward. We'll get one really high level half, and then we're going to have it deteriorate, and hopefully it'll still be entertaining in a completely different way.
I don't want to call this a tank bowl because we've seen that happen in traditional sports often enough with 2 teams that are at the very bottom, and it's very clear why it's that way. So when we see both of these teams on their non-preferred sides, it will probably end up turning into an interesting game, and it will still be close, but not because both teams are actually executing it to the best of their ability. So when we get Tropicals attacking and LFO on defense, it's about to be a whole other can of worms to open. Let's go for LFO because it's still pretty surprising that they are still in the running. They only have 2 points. Group A is so close that they could get 3 points and suddenly get 3rd place. It depends a little bit more on the result of the MIBR Black Dragons game and some of the results cases, but still, it's nuts that they're even still in the running.
Yeah, they're right now just a solid mid-table team in disguise because of that sort of one win. But that one win was against Black Dragons, who, in their own regard, was able to take away points from W7M, which is so incredibly impressive. It makes a really interesting dynamic with this group, everything just being completely thrown all over the place and so incredibly interesting, especially when you would argue that the harder half for a new team being the attacks is where they found their success, while their defenses is what they're really struggling with.
Right, they beat Black Dragons in overtime, which is a relatively even game. They lost badly to W7M, but we did kind of expect that. And then they lost 7-5 to MIBR yesterday, still relatively even, and now they're playing Tropicaus, who seem like their skill level and their coordination still isn't quite there yet. So in spite of LFO being this far down in the group, they still seem to be, I agree with you, a solid mid-table team in disguise, in spite of only having those 2 points.
Yeah, and one of the big factors of this roster, especially on the attacking side, you have to say is Fantasy. You know his name, you love him. He's been a mainstay as a top fragger here in Brazil for the longest time. And right now, his stats may not look the best, and that's because of in those W7M game, he really fell off and had a really tough time. He was shut down by the Bulls, but as soon as we got him back, even in that loss yesterday to MIBR, we saw him return to that form that we saw in Black Dragons, where he was really taking over the game. Right now, in his entry picks, he has 10. 7 of those are coming on the attacking side, which has been really beneficial for his team, especially when they have a nice 72% conversion rate when he does get that opening pick.
I think there isn't anybody else in the league right now that is as distinct on entry as Fantasy in terms of who is intended to be doing what, because we highlighted Raps having one of the better stages that he's had so far, and then that game yesterday comes up and I think he pulls up a 3-7 result or something over 10 rounds. It wasn't the cleanest game he's ever had. But Fantasy is always the dedicated entry. Raps is always going to be second man behind him. So it's nice that LFO have that very clear definition for a team that is this new. And hopefully when you're trying to, assert yourself on attack, you have everything, done to a very specific formula, which is helpful when you're getting guys like Daffodil and Swag to understand how to play at a tier 1 level when everything is as defined as that. It makes everything a lot simpler, and Fantasy is definitely somebody who steps up to the plate in that exact same way. Can they run over Tropicaus? That's the thing. Probably, because this team has been ridiculously disappointing with the amount of pedigree or just the history that they have and what they're trying to do. Right now, Tropicaus have the fewest rounds won of any team in this league. STK is even on entry, but seems like he can't perform at any other point during a round. The rookies are relatively inconsistent. The 2 major winners on this team, they can't carry the load by themselves. All of this seems like a mess, and nobody really wanted it to happen this way.
Yeah, it's been really rough because they seem so incredibly unpredictable. When you see them on the defensive side, you think, okay, yeah, they know what they're doing. They're pedigreed players. They have good ideas. Sometimes they make some questionable decisions, but it's mainly when you go onto the attacking side that they trip over themselves. They are stumbling, they're rolling, they're grabbing their knees and being like, oh, this hurt, because they're flustering. It's just flopping so incredibly hard on those attacking rounds.
Yeah, and you think that unpredictability is sometimes a good thing because it might make them hard for their opponents to read in some cases, but 90% of the time we can look at them when we're watching the games, and the one commonality is, what are they doing? Which really stinks to say, and it's funny because they have one more point than LFO do, which in a group that's so close puts them in a better position to still make playoffs if this game goes well for them, but it also very much still depends on the score. There's one guy on this team I think is worth highlighting. I looked at everyone's stats. Neskin's the only one that I think has a genuinely positive rating that looks like he's performing, but I think he's also doing it primarily in a flex capacity, and it just means that guys like STK need to step up a lot more.
Yeah, and when you have a flex player, he does lean a little bit more towards the supportive side of the flex players on the performance doing well. You might think, hey, maybe some of his kills are impactless, but overall, just having a consistent pedigreed player like Neskin on your team is always going to help. And you hope that maybe outside of the server, he's going to be able to really help elevate the rest of his team, because at times, like we've said, it's a Tropicaus, what are you doing moment constantly.
Let's dive into exactly what the stakes are for this one, because again, because everything is so close, if you were to get 3 points, it definitely means you have a higher chance. But the table obviously looks really confusing, which is a bit of a problem. We understand that. But there are not that many situations in which LFO can walk away with a win straight out of the gate. Connor, there's only 3 possibilities on this chart that look like they would actually qualify.
Yeah, they've got to win, whether it be in regulation or overtime, and they need some help. They need to be the biggest MIBR fans you've ever seen. And with Black Dragons coming off of a bye, things are going to get oh so difficult. At least for this group, we got to remove W7M, or else it would be an even bigger table, and Sprabunny would have been crunching numbers all night. At least he got a couple of Zs while he was whipping this up.
And the one thing to note as well, this does still depend upon the results of Black Dragon's MIBR that happens later in the day. So if that looks like a lot of data to all take in all at the same time, just know that because of this result, it's not completely set in stone, because there still is a game that has to happen directly above them. Right now, both of the teams in this game are below MIBR and BD, who themselves don't even have second place and first place locked in. But this is the very basics of it. LFO are confirmed in with a dub, regardless of how it happens, presumably from this chart. And with a loss, the chance still exists, but again, their fate isn't in their hands. Meanwhile, for Tropic House, it's just a matter of if they win, how many points they get, and how big that deficit ends up becoming.
Yeah, especially because you already touched on it for Tropic House. They have the lowest amount of rounds of any team in the league, and that means that big round differential being the first tiebreaker, not head-to-head, makes things oh so much more intricate and important for Tropic House to close out every single round that they can, and hopefully they close out this map ban phase. For the side of Tropic House, they don't really like Chalet, but the only other permaban that they have is Skyscraper, which they have to take down. Could have potentially been a hook with the overlap on LFO, but as we see the rest of these bans go through, we go all the way to Bank. For Bank, LFO have a pretty intricate, fun stat for it, because this is where they found their most success. This is where they beat the Black Dragons team that seemingly is getting better and better and better. For the side of Tropic House, this is tied for their second most banned map, but it opens up the options that they could have been cooking on some VOD footage.
The problem is you still have so many things that you can look at from that Black Dragons game, because again, there are only 3 live maps that LFO have really ever played. So do Tropic House actually have an advantage in this one, because LFO have played Bank in the past? Gibson, Whippet, welcome back. Before we jump into this one, both teams need a win with as few rounds dropped as possible to have a realistic shot at getting into the top 3 and staying there. Which team do you feel is most capable of getting a blowout victory? Whippet, what do you think?
If it's going to be a complete blowout, I think LFO are going to have that one. But my prediction says otherwise.
I was going to say, what's up with this one?
If it's going to be a huge blowout, I think it's going to be LFO. I think this game is going to be much closer, and I think Tropic House are going to be just able to eke it out. It won't be ideal. They'll lose a lot of rounds. I'm thinking they'll get a 7-5. It's going to be a close one no matter what. At least
Gibson,
I hope.
He's your duo. Do you support his claims?
I think LFO were the best effort victory in this one. I think just based on the roster, to me, the eye test says a lot more than the stats sometimes. And even in those LFO losses, they were doing a lot of good things in the round. It was just one little thing that was maybe going wrong here and there. And I think that's a lot easier to fix. I've gone for LFO. I know that Whippet went for Tropic House there because he just hates me that much. But honestly, I feel like LFO are still building on that journey, and this could be a big statement for them if they can get a win here.
Well, for both teams, because they've had decent struggles over the course of this stage so far, this is now their last opportunity to qualify for playoffs, only a couple of weeks removed after adding a couple of new players onto both of their teams respectively. If they can pull off a win here and then manage to keep that spot for the rest of the group stage, it will be a mighty impressive feat to just make it to the knockouts. Connor and I are going to back out. The two of you have this game from here on out. Have a good one, win, and you're in between Tropic House and LFO.
Thank you, guys. And now it's just Whippet and I alone with chat once more. How exciting is this one? LFO versus Tropic House. Whippet, it's as simple as this for both these sides. The only way that you have a chance is by winning this next one. And if LFO or Tropic House win it, they still need a bit of a favor in the next game. But what I love about
Well, Gibby, I've lost your mic in my end, so I hope the audience can still hear you. I really do. The big and most exciting thing about this to me is going to be the fact that I'm the only one that's on the opposite side of the predictions. I'm the one that's saying it's going to be Tropicals, and I mean, I love that, especially when I'm disagreeing with you, Gibby, if you're still even here.
I'm here. Is there a Gibson in the room with us now?
I don't know. I heard your logo for a second. I'm like, oh, where's he gone? What's happened? Oh.
It's a shame because I literally gave the best intro to a game anybody has ever gave ever. So hopefully chat heard it, as Hibana is going to get banned away on bank again. It's just because of the impact Hibana has on hatches, so no surprise there whatsoever. The next attacker to go, you would think it could be the likes of a Ying again with the impact she has, but there's still other options available, and it's going to be Nook with the nades. Happy with the attacking bans, Whippet?
Yeah, I mean, the Hibana is going to be a useful one. Again, the hatch is so relevant. It's going to be huge and impactful. The Nook, again, a massive map like this where you rely a lot on information to know what pushes are arriving. Again, very vital, very important. And a mirror is going to go away again. Those mirror windows can shape and structure the map in a very different way and make it very difficult to clear. So easier to do it now in the ban phase than it is when you're live. And it's going to be a Valkyrie ban, last of all. No! My streak is ruined. It's going to be an Azami.
And again, though, it makes sense. You think of what Azami can do in open area, particularly on those...
My streak of Colt just going nonchalantly finals, I go, oh, it's Valkyrie. It's over now.
Right. I'm sorry to let you know this, Whippet, and I know that I've entertained your fantasy for a long time, but the cast is about the players. The cast is about the players, not about your predictions.
Listen, I mean, if I cared about predictions, would I have went the way I did in my prediction tally? Of course, because I'm going to be right and you're going to be wrong. Tropical is going to win this game. Have I just cast or cursed them?
So, we will find out pretty soon, though, because we're stuck into round 1 of LFO versus Tropical's. Basement will be the defense's first place to play. You look at the lineup they have, they bring the Goyo. Of course, that's going to be used to delay them if they try to go through that server push. You look at the other operators in the mix, and, well, but you do not know how happy it makes me to see Smoke being brought here instead of Tachanka.
Go on then. So why does it make you so happy if I do not know why it does?
We have done so many games in the past, whether it's in Challenger League, whether it's been below, where teams will take the Tachanka instead of taking Smoke in the scenario.
Oh no, I just had a memory unlocked moment. I know you know exactly what game I'm thinking about.
Yeah, because the smoke plumes just spread a little bit further, it's a little bit easier to hit, and you're taking away the RNG nature of the bounce.
You've ruined my day for the next 5 seconds because you reminded me of that matchup we had to watch. Neskin will tap away, find a little bit of damage on the toes of one player. That's going to be Cameraman. He's going to take that little bit of damage. He's on the Maverick, and he's going to be primarily focused on getting open that hatches. The thing about the Maverick on the hatches is you do leave yourself vulnerable to smoke canisters getting tossed up towards it, or that pressure from an impact or a C4 chipping away at your damage, or even taking you out completely. So I don't really imagine there'll be a lot of roam presence on Tropicals. Neskin, look the way he's perched up already, trying to hold on. He's going to be, kind of the intention is if Maverick arrives, that's going to be Cameraman. He's going to try and catch him out with that up close and personal TCSG, which isn't a very forgiving weapon to get hit by a single time.
It isn't, but you want to be hitting your headshots in the long range engagements with it because it does give the attacker a real advantage. Now, Neskin is playing pretty close. Now, they do have the trick, so Ellis do step away, but it's going to be a Maverick instead, and that has a big impact because Raps will say thank you very much, and he clears away the player. Now you can drop a little bit more utility, and that hatch is free reign for your side. STK now steps outside. PPWS, though, still playing that position on top of blue. That can be incredibly difficult to clear.
Got very little support from his team. Levy rotates in now towards the main focus point of that site. Patch is getting opened up, and that CC1 yet to get fully opened up, fully deconstructed. Imagine it just happens there, just popped as I mentioned it. The Twitch drone sent in, destroys those hot pockets, removes that delay utility available to them. Again, you'll see a lot of Twitch on a map like Bank for that reason. Cameraman continues and proceeds to work away at this hatch best they can. This is the impact of the hub on a bond. You don't want to deal with bringing out the Thatcher, so you're going to have to just Maverick through. That takes time. Minute left in the round. Drone gets caught up by Yex, but still. And they've dropped the elevator hatch. And I don't think they know that Fantasy's here. The player in Vault's going to be down to try and watch that, but he's got in reasonably undetected. If he can find an opening pick here, this might just dismantle this defense, considering they're already one gone down. And they still don't know. They still have no idea. He'll smoke off towards this vault door, but the Goyo bursts in front of him and locks him in place, but he might be able to find one head to that narrow angle just over the bomb chassis.
I don't think that they popped the Goyo knowing was there. It was a precautionary measure. 2 kills come in from Fantasy and Cameraman now, making it a 5v2 as Daffodil gets the case down. C4 brought out by STK, but he needs to shoot the kill, and he can't. Swag and Raps clean out that one. Flawless round 1 from LFO. And that was really clean. But once they got that kill to the player who was trying to trick with the Runegate, it was pretty much worst case scenario for Tropicals at that point. And the thing that we noticed about LFO yesterday, and from watching them, they're a side that whenever they start getting the rhythm going, and if they get it going early, they can start knocking round after round after round. So it's very important that Tropicals win this next round and do not give this experienced side any momentum in this whatsoever.
They need to keep LFO within touching distance. They can't let them run off in the distance and try and recover that later on. Statistically, LFO, one of the worst defensive teams coming into this one, and Tropical, one of the worst offensive teams. So that will be funny when we see them swap onto that one. For the time being, things are a little bit more fair. Get ready, you're going to get jump scared by our faces in a second. Hello! Scary is terrifying. Look at us. What a shame when you could be watching Brilliant Siege.
It's a shame for us too. We were enjoying that matchup after just one round, but it gives us more time to talk maybe about both of these sides going, because obviously CDAPS and Jacob did a brilliant job of setting this one up. But again, it is a team that's relatively new, but the players aren't new. You know, the players and the faces, they've been here for a long time. You know who they are, but the team's only been together for a month. They're taking on Tropicals, been together a little bit longer, and you think the chemistry would be a little better. So here's where the question goes. Is it a case where experience is going to be better than a very good chemistry? Or do you think LFO have had enough time to start putting that together?
I think LFO at this stage, they've had a lot of games played, and of course, for every official you play, there's a lot of scrims that go into it, a lot of prep. They're going to be building that chemistry as a unit. So I don't feel, while yes, the new conglomeration of 5 players, I don't think it's necessarily the most key stat going into this one. They have a lot of experience. Of course, everyone speaks about Cameraman on that side. One of the most legendary names in this region, and can probably lead and build a very good team around him. The question, they just haven't performed the way a lot of people expected, and I don't think it's down to a chemistry issue. I think it's a fundamental issue to how they want to play. The game yesterday against NIP, was it NIP? No, it was MIBR. My mind sometimes slips. The game against MIBR and Chalet, they played a very fluid style of play that got penalized time and time again. Now, Blank tends to reward perhaps a little bit more of a rigid team that sticks within those procedures, that step-by-step system, and if they follow that, they should be in a good position. Tropicals, they didn't have a good outing yesterday, getting many rounds at all, but I still believe they have that potential in them to be able to get the victory here. It's not to have predictions after all.
I think the big thing about Tropicals, though, is they've not played a lot of long games. You look at the results, 7-3, 7-3, and I think 7-2. 2 of those being losses, of course, being the 2 7-3s. So they don't play a lot in the course of this league so far. The pool of what we've seen from them maybe isn't as much as the likes of LFO, who've played a lot more rounds than them. And that'll help them build a little bit more chemistry. You look at the game yesterday, and LFO were 1 kill away from going to overtime. Wasn't it Swag nearly pulled off one of the most incredible 1v4s on Basement and Chalet?
I watched that so many times back and forth, Gibby, and it still hurts that he peaked a little bit wide round pillar.
But this is the thing. They've played more rounds as a team than Tropicals, and again, you could look at it 2 ways. There's more tape on them than maybe Tropicals, or maybe you could say that they're more experienced. Either way, we'll find out at the end of this game. Yekt's playing inside of Archives with that shotgun again, so they're electing to bring that one this time once more. And it does allow you to play this long angle. Look, the 1.5x, if you hit those headshots, that gun, that TCSG is a unit.
That wasn't
not the word you were expecting, is it?
Expected you to use? That's not something I'd imagine in your vernacular very often. Fair enough.
Nope.
It's an aquifer situation once again, give me a feeling. However, I mean, of course, he's going to be locked inside of Archives Tellers. His main job is to hold on the bottom square to stop them getting that wall, or at least stop them or slow them down in that process. Swag will post up just outside of ATMs. We'll try and probe and fish for that opening, but we'll be patient waiting for information because there's a very significant lack of it from LFO. The Monty's in play. Cameraman's going to don that one, so they've taped one hand behind their back without that extra gun and rifle available to them. And Neskin gets inside of Semi-Desk and will try and peek out to get one. They don't seem to be aware of the Dokkaebi inside of ATM, and if Swag can get away with this undetected, that would be a huge opening. But top of your screen, just over a minute to work with, and, well, LFO don't have a lot of time to take a lot of very difficult ground to clear.
They know the player's there. They're waiting for him to reveal himself. The spray comes out, but he tries to pre-fire the crouch going into a stand. But the player stayed crouched, so no headshot found this time round. That works in the favor of Tropicals. And then Neskin gets a kill. That'll definitely help. Addy gets a second one. That's a 5 versus 3 now. As the player who should have been removed from the server gets taken down. The shotgun from Yex gets 2 more. The TCSG leaves Monty all by himself. An honor casts on Biorwa, but have we seen a single successful Monty round? We had some in Korea, but none here.
No, not in BR, hasn't worked out. But do you know why I like that round? Not only does it suit my prediction, it was actually bringing into a point I wanted to highlight about LFO and the style of play they have. They are very, very, very separate from each other. Look at that engagement, right? They're all in different areas of the map trying to achieve different things. No one's there for the trade. They have a zonal style of play. So they have, one player has a very key intention. Swag's job is to walk in ATMs and get that pick towards tellers. Everyone else has their own separate jobs to do, but no one's playing cohesively to get trades and use that opening. And that's a massive problem on a map like Bank. You lose one pick untraded all the way in the middle of nowhere. That's a huge disadvantage. You leave your team, and look at the stakes going into this matchup again. For LFO, it is really down. They just need to win. They cannot lose this game.
And a reminder though, it does depend on the result of the other one as well. It's not as simple as that, but it does go hand in hand with the result of this one. If they beat Tropicals, they leapfrog over them inside the table. These two teams sitting in 4th and 5th, still with a chance going in this final day. Nothing really given away after 2 rounds though, both sides winning 1 round apiece. Both teams winning those rounds rather easily too, might I add, with the way that they played out. So this time around, we look at what's going on. It's basement defense again. Looks like Tropicals are going to keep one player playing inside. Neskin's maybe thinking about a vault out at some point as there's a player right by. He jumps out. Thank you very much. Neskin gets a big pick. And now it's a 5 versus 4. And that's the sort of kill that will really annoy a player like Cameraman, who has been around for so long, has seen it all and done it all. To get killed on upside down rappel on that window of all windows of this map would be frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a little bit of a gut punch to receive. And again, while not necessarily an easy one to trade back, an untraded opening goes in favor of Tropicals. Can LFO bounce back from that? They need to win these next engagements consecutively. PBWS on the Warden Shotgun, another edition of this technology getting sent to us. And, well, Raps will go and try and get themselves into mortgage. Daffodil just on top square, looks for something, but at this point the defense don't need to extend. The damage is done, the opening pick went their way. No reason to take a risk, no reason to get overly aggressive, so they'll just post up and do the best they can. Elevator hatches was opened up, they intended to hold it, but they've already fallen back, so be aware of this opening. You see that Twitch showing to pop that Goyo, and well, Neskin, a little bit of his own poison there, reduced to around half HP.
That's big as well, because it does 2 things. It removes that Goyo early, which means that if you go for a late execute through elevator hatch, you can't get locked out. It also does some damage to Neskin, making him easier to remove from the map. So that one little bit of utility from Twitch could have a big impact on the late stages of this round, but it is still a 5v4. It is still a situation where LFO need to find a couple of picks out of nowhere. STK, it's had a pretty okay map so far, 1-0 after that little rehost we had. We did lose the stats from round 1. Wait for that to happen. But 54 seconds now left on the clock. It's all stalled out just a little bit. It's forcing LFO to push hard and fast with it.
We have information the player inside of garage, but PBWS is going to fire away and get one on the Raps. Again, another untraded, another untraded. Oh my god, it's going to be an explosion. Tropicals get everything lining up their way with 35 seconds and 4 to find. An ace clutch required. The case is cold in deep enemy territory. Might be able to get 1, maybe even 2, but I imagine it would be a miracle if Tropicals throw this at the hands of LFO. So I think time will slowly whittle down and a little bit windy with that DMR. Neskin gets the confirmation in a second round for Tropical.
You know what happened there a little bit? The two
What
targets came on a screen and he didn't decide which one he wanted to take.
He kind of shot in the middle. He's like, oh,
Yeah.
no, 2 people. I'll send the bullets downrange. Or it was just a bit windy in their player booth.
It wasn't like the lineup that we got yesterday, was it? In basements,
Not
where we
one
got
bit.
the most perfect lineup with 2 players, where just 2 shots completely ruined the defense. We will move into round 4, of course. Tropicals leading 2-1. No surprise there whatsoever, though, looking at what history would tell you about Bank. 2-1, no problem whatsoever. We move up to the top floor, and again, but we talk about what we spoke about yesterday. If you want to play on the windows, you need to take control of that lobby. You need to control main lobby because you can't let a defender in there. So reality, you're utilizing 2, maybe 3 players of your lineup if you want to execute that way.
I'm curious if they're going to stick the blitz in this situation, Gibby. Because when I saw that blitz, I was going, oh, maybe we'll go to open area, and that would be a little bit more of a predictable read of where you'd use this operator to break a line very aggressively. But they're going to stick it for CEO and Office. And I'm not too sure what they're thinking with this one. I'm very intrigued to see where they'll send it. Whether it'll just be aggressive from Square to try and push directly to get control of Janitor. Because they'll have a lot of window pressure. The double Claymore, look at this, they have 4 of them available. They'll set them on the base of all of these windows to ensure Sophia is primarily safe to do so. How are they going to enable Raps on that blitz? What is their intention there? Because this could be a very explosive initial entryway into sight, or it could fall completely flat if Tropicals are ready to react to it.
Are you feeling stock Janitor?
I am feeling it just a little bit.
I think that's what the intention is going to be. So, cameraman gets on the floor. As you know, there's a player playing on the shield now outside of stock, so that's a little bit more information. That player could be taken down by the blitz, but again, you can't send him in solo. He needs support. Blitz needs somebody playing off his back shoulder, so even if he is taken down, you get that instant refrag. So we'll keep an eye on the silhouettes as the round progresses to see if that happens. But with 2 minutes gone, Tropical still pretty happy. Nobody overpeaking, nobody giving away their lives in any unnecessary way. This is going to script for the defending side.
Mute jammers were causing initial bits of chaos, choking out Cameraman's Rotera drones, and lots of window pressure. No peeks from lobby. It would be a very dangerous thing to do. Track Stingers go out, and I have a feeling they might get followed by a couple of smokes as well. They're going to try and brute force this. They'll repel into Aqua, and Fantasy reads it perfectly, gets an opening, and finds a second. LFO, this is what they needed. They need this next fight to go their way as well. The player tucked inside of Elevator won't reveal themselves. Will swing wide from Countdown now as their position's been compromised. But PPWS gets 1 on the swag. Fantasy finds a third, leaving it all down to 1 player alone. And a 4K for Gridlock. Single-handedly takes that round in their hand and says, calm down, boys. I'm gonna win it. We've had problems with trades. They ain't gonna find one on me. And they draw us level.
And again, one little thing through that whole round for Tropicals, and that was Pulse getting caught with timing as he vaulted over that window out of office to try and get the kill under the Gridlock. If he stayed where he was, he kills the player on the rappel. The timing ruined everything, and it allowed Fantasy to pick that defense apart. It goes to show, and it's one of the reasons why I love Siege so much, that every single player's life inside the lobby is so precious if you want to win.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts. That's one way I look at it as well in that situation. Every single small thing that can go your way, every one that doesn't go in your favor, cascades and builds into a bigger issue. But it is still level. No harm, no foul. Just on the reset in this game as we get ready for round number 5. Nothing too fancy on the lineup for LFO. The addition of the 0. We've all heard about how Big ET would use these cameras. They have a fantastic drone network on a map like Bank. So that's what Fantasy is going to do. Likely go on the roof, set these all up, and they'll have a perfect network of information that will be able to relay exactly where, or at least catch out a lot of those very dangerous roamers that you might find on this site.
You can take the man out of EU, but you can't take the EU out of the man. I love that you always find a way to reference something about those EU plays, and Big ET is probably, would you argue, one of the best Echo players in the world at what he does?
Of course.
Yeah, easy.
No,
Move.
I'm
Next.
not biased. I'm not biased for the Koi boys at all.
But it's
It's a
true.
very difficult one to say. I just realized.
So we move on to the round. We'll step away from that one because everyone knows this is a half EU, half NA crew as well that you got working inside of BR. 2 minutes and 10 seconds to go, and Raps is going to play it safe as he opens up that quad wall from the window as he looks down, keeping his life a little bit more protected, but not for too long. STK jumps out the window. Now he's going to try to battle this one. If he gets anything else from this position, he'll be doing well, but he got rid of the ace. So he's in a 1v1, backs himself in a corner, taken down. But still, I'd say the rollout was successful. You got rid of the ace.
Wasted a couple of extra seconds as well. He was cautious and aware enough to peek that one out and check if he's going to get held from ATMs. They've walked a Monty in the bottom square, at least by electrical. That's going to be a problem. And again, Cameraman can gather a lot of information in this situation, but there's not a lot of blue silhouettes flanking him. They're all a little bit separate. One player still on the roof. They're trying to drone get that information. Well, they don't have a substantial amount of control upstairs, nor have they displaced anyone inside of archives and tellers. And 2 bodies now fill that key area of control as Fantasy finally steps in and controls vending machine, and the rest of top floor goes now in the favor of LFO. But just over 60 seconds to work with, and well, Daffodil nearly finds one pick, takes a little bit of damage through the wall, but not enough to really concern him. But Cameraman has just walked in. He's halfway done with the plant. He's gonna stick it. Tropical's caught napping. Cameraman won't get up from this one. A Capcom trap detonates. Fantasy's gonna either get one. PPWS trades it back, and just like that, we're down to a 2 versus 1. Daffodil, last one standing, will hold the cross, will read this play, but he's gonna lose his life to the CZ of all weapons. And we're going to see the lead return to the defense of Tropic House.
2 for the CC, though, in that round. PPWS comes in clutch on the Thorn. One of the first few times I've ever seen Thorn winning a round on a cast with me involved. Nice one for the Irish there, but...
It's a weird one to see on the back of her. She's got the Garda written on her.
Yeah.
Written on it. The police service of our wonderful island.
It's a strange one, all right, but it is.
It always catches me off guard.
But you know what else was strange? How Tropicals just let Cameraman walk into kitchen and execute that plant. Now, I do think that he was aided by the fact the quad wall was open, so they couldn't necessarily step out to swing him in that position. There was nobody with a C4 in the postal code, so if they did swing, they had to assume somebody was in square that would make their life forfeit. What I love, though, was their reaction to once that case went down. They got rid of Cameraman within 2 seconds. If Cameraman stays alive there, it's a completely different round. Monty on the board with the case down is one of the most valuable assets a team can have. But you get rid of the Monty, and then the rest of the defense or the attack fell apart. We even saw a Capcan kill in the midst of all the action.
When we speak about, when we talk about Capcan, obviously it's one of the most frustrating operators to play against in your ranked games, but in these moments where there's chaos creators. So what I imagine happened there is Cameraman uses years of experience and realized I can walk in and plant and I can do it for free, and the rest of his team had to make that on-the-fly adaptations to get in the right position, and that's likely where that Capcan trap arrived from. And Tropicals reacted beautifully to that retake and got the job done, basically. Any way to say it. Not over yet, though. Last round of the half, and Cameraman first to fall. And STK peeks out, grabs him, and no trade, and you've lost your ace and your hard breach.
0-4 since the first round for Cameraman as well. It's not been the best bit of performance that we've ever seen from him, so now LFO, you need to fight an uphill battle. Oh, Fantasy! Beautiful. That's not the first time he's sat someone down tonight as he gets that opener. He's going to step further again as well as he uses those Osta shields to get some information. Swag makes it a little bit easier. It's a 4v3 now. Neskin takes a bit of a beating elsewhere as he drops down low. He does take down Daffodil, though. There goes the Monty. And we're back to a 3 versus 3. The barrel of the guns will do the speaking. Here's the thing. Neskin controlling this position. He can chew down a lot of that time using those canisters. Fantasy gets himself another one, but he's still got another player to deal with inside of Big Garage, so him and Raps are going hunting.
3 versus 2, strong position, but the next engagement could decide this round. Tropicals can find it. That will very much upset the rhythm of this one. Yex replaces Neskin on that ace chassis. More HP to work with, so he can scrap and brawl just a little bit longer. You hope they've got the network of cameras to relay information that they need, but they spot one player and Yex picks that perfectly. The Ossa now down the shields that were already placed. That's all they have to work with. 2 versus 2, a tag team matchup. and tensions begin to build in the situation. A minute to work with, 60 seconds, so both teams can take a breath and realize what they're dealing with. A good drone spots that one player, the default angle opened up, and they can try a work a plant. The X is very much aware that a crossfire will get held from Garage, and the Buff will try and make this stick work. Perhaps I overspoke, and Raps will find 2K, and he's going to tie it up 3 rounds apiece as we move into the second half.
He wraps that round up pretty nicely with that double peak coming out of Parking Garage. And again, that was Buck. By rotating back around, getting into server and opening up that wall, it creates a little bit of confusion. They know there's a player inside of Garage, but you got to stop that Buck from stepping in and planting as well. So the player steps out of Vault, gets picking up. Raps did really well on that one. So we move to round 7, a 3-3 split. Has Cameraman just decided he doesn't want to use his gun today?
It's not been the greatest day in his career so far for Cameraman. But yeah, he's on the Clash now. I think right now this is the decision, right? Not every game can every player turn up and hit every shot. So Cameraman's went, right, I'm just going to get on the Clash. I'm going to waste time where I can and be a massive resource sink for Tropicals to deal with. Now, the interesting thing about this side swap, and the fact that we went level going into it, is statistically both teams are now on their worst side.
You were waiting for that one. You couldn't wait to talk about this.
Is this going to be a change of the tide for one of these teams? Or is this going to be, let's just say, a whimsical half of Siege?
Well, something's got to give. One of these teams has to... I would say has to win on the site, but really, no, we can get another 3-3 split and go all the way to overtime, which in reality doesn't help either of these teams' causes. You kind of want to get this one done in regulation, or else you'll find yourself relegated to the last chance qualifiers. So looking at the way the Tropicals are going to approach this first attack, I see a very late push coming in again. You bring the Ying, you're going to use those Candelas to really force LFO's hands in the last second, so Fantasy becomes a prized asset now for LFO. He's got to stay alive so that whenever they try to make that last chance execute happen with those Candelas, he can pop on those shades and hold back that push.
Tropicals taking their time in this early stage. Drones scurry around the map. They'll find what they can. And considering the confidence they are now moving within the map, they know there's no roam presence. They can begin to work through this map best they can. And an interesting use of one of the very limited resources that they have on this side to open up this double reinforcement looking towards Marble Stairs. The intention here is very basic. They're going to try and hold that flank, and player on blue stairs with that shotgun is going to be the attention of Levy for the time being. I believe that hatch is reinforced to give that extra coverage, and they've got Cameraman inside trying to waste even more time. Habana ban in full effect. No one's going to bring up that Thatcher in this situation, so let's go the long way around with that Maverick, and it is eating into the available time for the offense to use to make this execution work. And dealing with a clash inside of servers, this could be a very, very difficult last moment execute if they go for that blue side hit.
If LFO get the first pick, Clash becomes so much more powerful as well because you can really frustrate the players. You can see PPWS taking some damage, but that's just from the Electric Clawed hatch. That's just a case of him trying to get it open. But with a minute left, it still seems very slow. Like we're down into 50 seconds now, and they're still only getting hatches work or opened. They spent 2 minutes clearing a map where essentially nobody was roaming on, so it's really wasted a lot of their time and fed into the way that LFO set up this defense.
Neskin has dropped inside of Elevator and brought the case with him. He'll get rid of that proxy and the default camera, but he'll use his Candelas to try and give him some space, but the smoke will compress him further back. And this is a real problem situation as he holds the case. He has that win condition. And the top of your screen doesn't lie. 20 seconds. And it's all down to this one. It's going to get scrappy as both teams get ready to go brawl for brawl. Cameraman will get one with the second. His smoke will choke out Neskin. SK gets aggressive with the DMR. Charges in the locker, but only shut down, and the confirmation swings to your feed. LFO get a near flawless round. And you know what would simply fix all of these problems, Gibby? You know what? One single operator would have made that round so much easier, and he's not even banned.
Thatcher.
Thank you for reading my mind.
I panicked. Whenever you delayed your answer by that long, I was like, did I just let you down? Did I say the wrong answer? Even though I knew that I was right, I was like, You can't leave a man sitting that long on the answer. You know this.
I have to build suspense. I have to make you feel like you've said something completely wrong. Otherwise, there's no. I've got to torment you every way I can.
I was waiting for us to find out. We'll find out right after this break. Is what people like to do in those scenarios. But we move into round 8 now. LFO take the lead. They're winning 4-3. You get the feeling that if they can get a 2-round lead, even with their struggles on defense so far, once you get a 2-round lead on defense, it really eases a lot of the pressure on that defending side. It also puts them on to round 6, which means they're on match points. So there's a couple of benefits if they get one. Well, actually, the next one put them on 5-3. Why did I try maths? Why did I try maths?
Gibby, have I just heard you just the wonderful analogy of win round, win game again? How?
No, that wasn't
2 days in a row.
That wasn't the logic I was going for. My problem was I said win 2 rounds in a row.
I reject your reality. I have substituted my own. That's what you said. You can't change my mind.
Not this again. Not this again. Anyway, Neskin looks to play on top of the windows, playing on Zofia. He's going to prepare himself in case anyone does jump out the windows. The one thing I don't like about putting those claymores in that position is a good player is going to get that kill before they hit the ground. So they're going to get their 1-for-1 trade.
Okay, that's true. However,
oh, there's a counter.
It's still a 1-for-1. You know? You gotta
but not all 1-for-1s are equal. You have to remember that.
You gotta get your Joe. You gotta get it.
That's a reference that LATAM people will definitely get.
Everyone who should get that back from his little stint inside of EUL many moons ago. However, SDK harassing. I wish that Twitch drone looks to have a little bit of pressure trying to find utility to burn away. Can't, but smoke canister will get sent out. Then Swag just peeks Levy on the window. Huge read. And gets the job done, opening pick in favor of LFO. No trade. Tropicals have walked the Monty all the way up to Banana. We'll try and tap away. The hip fire, looking for a bit of luck to go their way. Oh, this is a horrible angle, and below pressure arrives. Monty's got nowhere to go. Between a rock and a hard place. Dodges the smoke canister. Luckily, we'll try and pre-fire, find some damage. Not looking enough to find the head, and this is a nightmare position to find yourself in. So early reads the player inside of Kanto, but I have a feeling Monty won't last too much longer, and I'm exactly right. Raps is going to be a fine. That gets in a 5 versus 3, and it looks like LFO will find themselves that 2-round lead they so desperately want. They keep up this pressure, as Tropicals are yet to find a single trade in this round.
The one thing I like is nobody from LFO got too greedy there. They knew Monty had his back turned to sight, but instead of risking a player getting picked by one of the players on the windows, they just kept that 1v1 fight in office going because they knew that when you have the number, you don't want to give away anything for free. So Neskin playing on the roof, you can see they're having a little bit of an ad hoc talk as they look to work out what the plan is. You can even see the players convert. This is why I love LAN. You can see them having this conversation with themselves on what to do next. And he's waiting for Sledge to come over as well. They're going to abandon plan A, push in through square, push in through stock, and try to brute force their way into sight with 30 seconds to go.
This will not be an easy one. They're really going to rely on the basic premise of an FPS. Win your ones. They've got information, but they can't win that one. Fantasy gets the opening, gets himself traded, but a little bit too late in this round now for Tropicals. SCK up close to DMR will smoke off Kanto and try and make his progression towards meeting and Trump. He won't have this an easy way. He gets it down on Castle, though, and that's the lifeline. But look at the top of your screen. Only 8 seconds. He spots the barrel, spots the shoulder, but time will wind this round to a close. They'll try and stick it. 000 is gone. Will the cover be good enough? A little bit of damage found, but they'll pull off the stick. And they will lose out on that round. 2 advantage now for LFO.
I just feel like the way Siege plays right now, you're taking such a gamble whenever you try to brute force it in like that at the end of the round. I know that they had no choice. You got to try win the round. But they had so much time to play with. They had Monty playing on top of that banana corridor and nobody helped them. Monty was there as an island, and that's really not what you want whenever you're playing in that position. You need somebody in to give you a little bit of a hand to make something happen. So LFO have that 2-round lead that I spoke about earlier, and I think this is the point now where they get a little bit more comfortable. They still want to win this one in regulation because they're sitting on 2 points. A win here would put them on 5, and that would put them, into that top 3. And then they just got to sit and wait to see what the result is of that MIBR game a little bit later today. Open area will be the site that they're going to play on defense. The Azami ban will have an impact here, as you can't set up that maze in this area of the site that usually we see teams try to do. So what are the keys of victory here for Tropicals in this attack? You got to take top floor control first. You got to make sure you have those hatches available to you if you needed. You got to make sure that nobody is going to backstab you, and if possible, but I always like to get at least one part of that quad wall open as well.
I like it. I can't argue with you. I can't argue with you. I can't even say Gibby's wrong. He's actually correct in this one. Drop the cows. The Ying edition, I like that. Of course, we'll be able to execute on. Bravo's getting brought out this time, and I say it a lot, but I think until she's at least a little bit more understood in competitive scene, while she has all those fancy interactions, you can, hack legions, you can get echo drones, Valkyrie cameras. The big thing is you're gonna get those high impact default cameras, or maybe something a little bit more direct.
Speed.
I think they're gonna go fast here. Yes, they are. The shield behind kitchen counter could be a massive problem. One player's gonna be Echo who gets slain. Once he gets one trader back, that's on the nest skin. And well, Tropicals find 2 in rebuttal. Daffodil gets 1 trader back. Smoke goes deep to stop this rotation instead of archives. Candelas will burn away and try and delay this best they can. They should be able to stick this. The coverage looks good from top square, but a must-win fight for Daffodil. The SMG-11 reloaded and trying to win this fight, but it's a nightmare on the plant pot. But he's going to win it no matter what. Nevy's on a single point of HP. Daffodil's wounded, but still better off than him. The cases went deep, but SDK gets that trade off, and now in a 2 versus 1. Swag needs to win this next fight, but a player directly below the hatch. He hasn't spotted ahead just yet. He'll pre-fire, but gives away his position. SDK wraps it up and gets 1 more round back for the side of Tropicals. I like it. I like the quick execution. I like the quick rush to get the job done. LFO couldn't react in time. A narrow margin. Those fights start to slip in the favor of LFO towards the middle phase of execution. However, round goes the offense. 1 round separates these sides. Will we go to round 10? Will we finish round 10 level, I should say?
You know what I like even more than the speed that they took it? Was the place that they actually got the plant off as well. They actually pushed all the way in through that kitchen, that dining area, and went to the open area and parked right, planted.
They parked the
case. They parked the case down right underneath that hatch and open area. And you could tell even by the way that LFO were playing that they thought that the case was down behind the kitchen table or the counter where everyone normally plants.
Yeah. I mean, whenever you're rushing, right, the big thing about that is everyone's going to expect the case will get parked. I think I'm going to adopt that one now a little bit, Gibby. Thank you for that one. They're going to try and stick it down where they get in. It's the easiest thing to do. A lot of teams kind of have that kind of see red. We've hit a rush. We got our opening picks. Get the case down. Try and win that win condition and worry about the post plant later. They pushed a little bit deeper, a little bit further on, and it had that moment of disruption. That moment of where is the case, guys? And we don't know. And in that moment, they're still trying to worry about where the case is and as well about fighting their engagements. Very well done from Tropicals. Nearly less well done here. Vaults in Printer. Takes a lot of damage, knows what the threat is, and both players will kind of regret that one just a little bit.
But again, it's more aggressive. They're trying to get into the building a lot quicker and cause problems for LFO because of the way that they roam. You get that opening kill very quickly, and it puts things into your favor. So Yex now is going to open hatch number 1 as they've fully secured the top floor of bank. Now they're going to work on securing open area, which, even though STK didn't get a kill, I think just by getting in that window very early, but he gained control of ground floor for Tropicals.
Yeah, I mean, I think LFO wanted to hold on a little bit instead of open area, but that initial very fast entryway slowed it down. Cameraman once again dons the clash inside of server. We'll look to try and delay time in that latter stage. Blue hold, and this is the exact same that we saw previously on that basement hold from LFO. It worked out very effectively for them. Can they rely on that same level of time burn once again? Because I think Tropicals are really reasonably aware that they have full control upstairs. They don't need to worry about it. And this was the primary thing that slowed them down. Opening up these hatches best they can. The top cover was cracked open. Finally, EBWS gets through the rest of it. And now that is CC hatch opened up and available for them to work with. And begin to feel that will put some pressure on the players inside of server, especially that clash of cameraman.
A Fantasy now parked up inside of the garage. See, do you like what it did there? I used it to transition into that one as he's playing in this position. Neskin inside of square as well, but Clash is the player they really need to clear out of this position because it's just a nuisance, a thorn in the side. You want to get rid of it as quickly as possible because you can just slow your push. Goyos have been popped. Yex is going to drop that one. Yeah, I think you're right. The smoke has been dropped, but still they delay. Warden pops the glasses, and now he can see directly through that window. There is a player just above, and he gets into the gunfight, but misses his shots, and he's forced in behind, and Neskin gets that one. 5v3. Now it's a very tough situation for LFO to push this one back. Tropical is looking to draw the sides level at 5 rounds apiece. Daffodil steps towards red. He's got smoke canister still in his back pocket, but Levy's going to go for that execute now. Here's the smoke being thrown, and this is exactly what he said. You said he can stick it, and he does, and he takes over but whip it. It's a 3v3.
3 versus 3, retake's been initiated. Now they have to ascend upstairs to try and deal with this pressure, but a crossfire hell. PPWS gets the opening on the swag. His position's compromised, but that flashbang will buy time and critical space. Raps needs to win this one in server rack, but the player is tucked deep inside of blue. He'll be aware of it, but has a nitro to work with. Neskin gets one to Daffodil, and surely this point Raps is in a little bit over his head. Confirmed shut down by Neskin. And round 10 gets us to a level playing field. Once again, we go 5-5, meaning we will need all 12 rounds of regulation to crown a victor, and a timeout's been called by LFO.
The Intero timeout that we only get in Brazil, by the way. This is the only region where we get these timeouts, but this is what I wanted. What I was told that when I got the opportunity to cast BR, it was like, these games are going to be crazy. We're going to get, at least every round in regulation and every single game. And up until today, that's not what we got. We were getting 7-3, 7-2s. We're finally getting to see these teams go head to head. And the best thing about it is, these are the games that matter. Now, a reminder for those of you that are home of the maths. LFO need to win this one in regulation, if we're being honest. Looking at the table, they're on 2 points. A win in regulation would put them level with Black Dragons. And looking at the round difference, they would need MIBR to do bad things to Black Dragons in that game later on today. If they win this game in the next 2 rounds, and they do it in regulation, things become a little bit more in their favor.
A wonderful visualization of those coming out, of course. LFO will get that top 3 with an overtime victory or a regulation win. A loss in any capacity for LFO begins to trigger an absolute cascade of worst case scenarios. For Tropicals, it's not even a locked-in deal with a regulation victory. If they lock this in 7-5, which is the best case situation they can do, they're left that 55% chance of making the top 3. But at least they've done all they can in getting 3 points, which puts them in the best position they can. For LFO, it is win or bust, and win within regulation. Otherwise, it's over.
Gotta get the work done, Levy. Thought about dropping through the hatch, but he needs his Monty there.
First,
well, it's a sewer. He drops down into the sewer through the manhole, if you want me to use the correct term. As PPWS is going to play in the Monty, you want the Monty to step in first. You don't want your Thermite to be the first player to push down through sewer and surrender his life. Monty will wait for just a little bit inside of the entrance to dirt as he maybe tempts fate on a player running out, but I don't think LFO plan on taking that risk. But they do have a very good operator playing inside server and smoke to slow the push, but Monty's already managed to cross.
Look how much control the Monty just gathered. This might even pressure them to stop popping those Goyo canisters. No one on blue stairs. No one to stop this. And Tropicals have so much control here. Raps will get the opening pick instead of open air. You lose Neskin. You've lost your Thatcher. But you've got a very direct avenue to try and work this. You might try and still try and fight for that hatch. I believe it's open. Swag's playing above it, so you can't stick that plant. And I think SDK found that one out the hard way. As he loses his life in that brawl, the Thermite the Okabe goes down. And this direct avenue approach might not work out at all now, knowing that they need to use the X upstairs to try and clear what he can. He'll make a quick exit out of top square to rotate around. But Levy will plant behind the Monty, and this is huge. He's safe from behind the hatch. He's safe, and there's no one in close proximity. The Yokai drone goes off, stops it just in time. But they've given away their hand at this point, and the 3 bodies of Tropicals all stacked up in server with a lot of time to bait utility. I don't know how this can go.
That plant was close as well. That was very, very close to going down. Yet timing does have the intel on the fact that Valk is playing. Oh no, he does a little bit of damage to Levy. That could have went terribly. It's gone even worse though, as Fantasy is able to take him down on the peak. And Fantasy goes hard again. It's now a 5 versus 1. It is going to be taken back by Monty. But in this 4v1, Monty's a little bit isolated. There's nothing he can do. There's an echo, there's a smoke. I think Goyo will get into this dance because he wants to, because he has a little bit of fun. Raps gets the kill. Well, but I was told that we don't live in a fantasy world, but this is a fantasy world and we're all living in it.
You've been sitting on that one for a while, haven't you?
30 seconds.
No, I know you have a whiteboard of these written down that you're slowly going through to drive me more insane. But yes, it is not really a fantasy at this point. They get that round and they get themselves on to the very important regulation match point. So, for LFO, they want to win this game. They need to win this game to continue their potential for Tropicals. It's a massive blow. This is, without a doubt, the fact is you can only, at max, get 2 points from this game, and that percentage of you making the top 3 has dropped down. There is still a chance, but you need to get the victory. LFO are 1 round away from really putting the pressure on, I think, ruining the day of one of these sides.
It's going to be a tough one to take. Whatever team loses this game now from this position is going to be really disappointed, because Tropicals, they lose. They're into the LCQs. They got to pack their bags, reset their mentals, and get ready to run the gauntlet. LFO, they win this one. They kind of build their momentum up a little bit even more. Yes, they still need a result to go their way in the MIBR Black Dragons game. But sometimes with it, the team that sneaks in to the knockouts is usually the one that can cause the most surprises.
Yeah, I agree. It's always that like little underdog story. They can have those big results. The drone network secures open area reasonably early. Don't need to put anyone there for the time being. It's an upstairs take. I'll try and do it, I think, a little bit of a direct approach. Stock windows opened up early, and the opening pick arrives on Fantasy. Tropicals get that, and that's kind of huge. They spot one of the yokai drones, and they'll be able to take that one out of play, and they've done so effectively. Huge loss of an early pick and a massive bit of utility. You've lost Fantasy, who's 12-9 so far, putting in a shift, as well as you've lost that potential C4 he's brought to the grave with him, the only C4 LFO had available.
That's a big point. That actually is huge in this one, because we've seen LFO using utility, or at least tempting to stop the case from going down at times inside this game. So Levy now is going to open up that window to enable him to repel there a little bit later in the round if he wants to do so. Maybe even trying to bait one of those players to send a way out through. Swag takes a bit of a beating. Daffodil, though, makes it a 4v4 as he comes in with the assist. Things still tense in this one. 1 minute and 42 seconds. LFO need to hold out if they want that chance.
That pick, that trade, though, was very big. Now, they've lost 2 nades. Jackson wasn't able to use those ones at all, so they've been taken away from that pool of utility that they can utilize effectively. Thermite Charger go off, but guess what? He's going to get caught by pressure, and I'm not quite sure where that arrived from. He'll try to open up this close one by the head holes. It's a massive problem. Down below, Swag will send up that impact, and that's where those stray rounds arrived and landed on that Thermite. Breach goes off, and that's one of those big checklists, but with Valkyrie having impacts down below, not having that C4 threat, that is a very, very scary position to be in.
It is, and those impacts are gone. They're gone. They've got no C4s to use, as you pointed out already. So Valk has to do with his gun. Cameraman gets one. That's his second kill on the map. Levy trades it back, though. 3v3. Raps is going to fall to Neskin, making it a 3v2 now. The Candelas are going off, but there's Swag coming in with a backstab. He gets one, and it's a 2v2. Another Candela goes off. Levy is going to try to make the case stick, and it looks like he's just about to do it. 1 second to go. That case has gone down, and now it's a retake situation. LFO, this is it. This is your chance. STK gets the kill, leaving it all down to Swag. I'm getting some flashbacks to yesterday. He was in a 1vx. He wasn't able to pull it off. He pre-fires the wrong way. STK forces overtime, and now LFO's chances of making the next round, qualifying out of these groups, have gotten so much slimmer.
Oh my Gibby, 2 games in a row and we've had a double trip to overtime. We've not had it all this stage so far, no matter what region we've been on. I absolutely love it. Tropicals move to defense. LFO remain on the offense. This is absolutely perfect. Not the result either team would have wanted. However, for the viewers, we all love to see this one. Both teams pushing each other to the absolute brink, the absolute limit. Can they get it done? And I believe, as you are our numbers guy, we have a little correction to the statistics going into this one and how things lay.
Yeah, it's a 50% chance with the regulation one. Now the odds drop to 40% if they get this one in overtime. And really that 40%, as we're going to get a jump scare again, as you're going to have to look at Whippet now, that relies solely on the very small thing that is Black Dragons losing by the correct round amount in regulation. If it's a close game, if it's a 7-5 in that game later on today, I think that Black Dragons will still sneak on in, which would be heartbreak for LFO. But again, they get themselves into situations to win a game, and then things go just a little bit wrong with it. It's been that way for LFO so many times this season.
I mean, especially yesterday, because we got to see this on a first-hand basis. There was a number of moments on Chalet that they were in super winnable situations, and they let it slip their way. Just the thing is, right, and I've got my big primary issue with the way they play, is the fact is they're reasonably separate from each other, no matter whether it's offense or defense. They don't necessarily play within that golden ticket range of the 3-second trade. Typically, if you get the opening pick against LFO, it doesn't get traded back, or at least there is an attempt to it, and it kind of continues in that one, and they really rely on winning their fights in that last second execution stage. It can be a problem for teams, and we've seen it not work out for them. And I think that philosophy, or whatever they're cooking up behind the scenes there, it's not landed and connected effectively with this team.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just getting a little stat coming up on the bottom of your screen as well, and this is a fun one. Half of the rounds that have been won by Tropicals have been done by playing objective. They defused in round 5 in open area. They got the case down in rounds 9 and 10. It's something that they have done incredibly well compared to LFO. As you can see, basically every round that they have won has been done with the barrel of their guns, or time ticking down.
I always love it to see when teams are objective focused and how that tends to work out for them. Gibby, we're in overtime. We went for opposite predictions at this point. You went for LFO. I went the other way. Are you going to stay with your prediction?
Yeah.
You're not going to join the dark. You're not going to join the right side and go for Tropicals.
Look, you got to always be accountable. So if I go for LFO and they lose, I'm wrong.
I was giving you an out.
If I go for LFO and they win, everybody was right in this little production crew, bar you. So
listen. Someone's got to throw in a different prediction now and again. I think today it was mostly me that kind of threw the curveballs in just a little bit.
Well, we went to opposite sides in the last game of the day as well, and I think the main thing is the NA guys, Jacob and Cedars, I think they went with the same predictions as each other every game. They're using the stats. You and I, we go by the heart, we go by the soul, we go by, and let's be real, it makes us wrong way more often than we're right.
Yeah, no, my in all the leagues that I've worked, my prediction record's often very low. As let's say I vote with my heart, not my head. Sometimes I love to see certain teams win. Typically, I always go for the underdog. It's why I stand the teams I do. So,
are you saying that the Jacob and CDAPs go for the measure twice, cut one approach, and we go for that? That looks like it'll fit.
Yeah, if this was a carpentry, they'd be precise, they'd have the measurements, they'd cut it, it'd be perfect. And I just get a saw and go, here, sure, that's grand.
Sure, we can sand off the difference, it'll be grand.
Exactly. Put it on the sander, no worries at all.
So we move back into this.
I apologise to everyone.
A little.
Sure, be grand.
A little Irish.
Listen,
more than a little.
I can't get rid of it sometimes. It sneaks out.
It does. Look at the impact you had in demo. Anyways, we'll move in to this one. First round in overtime. LFO starting on attack, which doesn't really give anything away again. Both these sides had a 50-50 record on attack and defense on this map. So which of them is going to break that one? The big thing for LFO is that they win this round, they can maybe clutch it up on their defense. The big thing for Tropicals, though, is even if you lose this defense, you win your attack, you get to go there one more time. And you always tend to favor the team that starts on defense in overtime.
Yeah, I do as well. I'm sitting here real confident about the fact that I called for this this result to happen. So I'm just gonna be a little bit smug about it towards you. You're never gonna live this down. You'll be living in misery now. The opening pick goes for LFO and somewhat crushing my dreams of a defensive victory for Tropicals in this round. The opening pick untraded that DMR sings, and we do lose the Frost of STK early. Frost mats likely already placed and deployed. So who will walk into it? Who will stumble and stray themselves into a Pog mat in this round?
You're asking me to put that evil on somebody.
Yes, I am.
It always happens to the player who's having the biggest impact, so it would be fantasy if you were going by that logic, but he's got himself in 2. So even if he does step on 1, his job is already almost done inside this round. Another opportunity potentially to get a gunfight, but he drops down through elevator hatch. But I see a sneaky little player playing on main stairs, but his position's been revealed by the drone as well. But Fantasy has secured map control now for LFO with 1 minute and 45 seconds to play with.
Double casualties taken early. LFO in control all the time to work with as well. This is going to be a difficult task indeed. The whole key area still. Blue still held by the defense. They can try and make that one work and choke out some time. This Goyo will get burnt away. And look at the damage. That's some free damage taken by PPWS. He'll have to fall back even further, even though his shield's still intact. Gotta feel at this point the LFO are just probing, looking for that pick, looking for that moment to collapse and really crush sight. Could arrive at any moment here.
Yeah, they're prodding and probing to see where the soft spot in this defense is. PPWS has started moving up those main marble stairs again to see if he can potentially stop the push if they look to come down this section of the map. He will be aided by the fact that there is metal detectors, but what won't help is Fantasy getting his triple on the round. It's a 5 versus 2 now. Levy looks to step back to regain control. He does have some support in Yex, but all of that side through server is essentially free. It's just head holes there for Levy to protect. You look at the utility, and he's got 3 of those toxic babes left to throw. That will have an impact with 30 seconds left to go. There's the Candelas that go up. It's going to confuse the defenders. Another one goes. Daffodil goes for the execute. And there's the smoke thrown. It's not going to have an impact. He's looking the wrong way. He's in the wrong place at the right time. And with 42 seconds left now, the case has gone cold. Tropicals need to make this work. Swag gets one. It's all down to Yex and wraps up the round again. A flawless attack at LFO. They need to win their defense.
Oh, you would have thought in this situation it was going to come down to the defense that would be able to hold on best they can. Now, again, I mentioned it when we were back on round number 7. This is the side that neither team realistically wants to play. LFO statistically one of the worst teams defensively. Tropicals one of the worst teams on that offensive side. Down to this. LFO, you have to hold the line on the defense just a single time, and you get the OT victory here. Tropicals, you want to go all the way to round 15? Well, you've got to take this. There is no other way about it. Time to get this job done. Timeout called by Tropicals as they get ready for what could be their final round for them today. Who do you think takes it? 1 round shootout potentially.
LFO. I think this one's going to be done in round 14. Although, I do want to break copyright laws again if we go to round 15.
No, I'm not. I will not let you become the bargain bin version. Nope.
We're going all the way to conclusion.
No.
Copyright avoided.
Oh. I didn't expect that one from you, actually. It's a rare you've made me genuinely laugh. That's crazy.
There's a first time for everything.
The basement, we have arrived. LFO's final fortress in the defense. Can they hold the line and get victory, or will this get broken by Tropicals? The thing I'm looking at is Fantasy on the Solus, high impact operator and a high impact player who's been so effective at being able to consistently have those big one pick, huge impacts throughout this game. Now on one of the most impactful operators. Gotta feel this could be a huge round, and imagine they'll be upstairs roaming, assisting them in slowing down that initial entryway, and time was one of the key problems the Tropicals struggle with all throughout. their attacking side, especially on this side.
So as it stands now, LFO win this round. It's the best case scenario for them at this point. 8-6 will take 2 rounds more positive to their current round difference, which is currently -5. And then that will put them within touching distance of Black Dragons. If Tropicals win this round and they win in full overtime match point, again, round difference could have an impact. So LFO want to do this right now. Monty being brought once more. You know what the plan is. We've seen the script before. They want to get server control. They want to get that wall open, and they want to use the Monty to try force the plant. On the defensive side, Smoke and Echo are there to do the complete opposite. They're there to counter it. You want to stop the Monty from getting in. You want to stop the plant from going down. That's why Goyo was there as well with it.
Monty pushes forward, they'll get this breach open, and they have a lot of time. Now, we've seen them in this situation before, and everyone that went upstairs to try and fight their way through lost their life and left it down to a 3 versus 5 as they tried to brute force his execution. Fantasy can relay every bit of information and likely knows they'll intend to clear this position. This is a very difficult round for Tropicals in this moment because, well, yes, you're knocking on the door of sight, but everything else can go against you. And I think Fantasy knows someone is just around that corner. He could be huge impact here. He knows the threat will arrive from electrical. He's got the open hatch as well. They'll plant on the single wall facing server. That will be their plan, and spots the flank coverage as well. Oh my Gibby. Evie's gonna try and stick it. The first Yokai drone misses. Fancy drops in, gets one the Neskin. He can't deny it. He's gonna choke out inside that smoke. The case is hot. And look at the damage done from those impacts at 30 seconds. So we go critical. Fantasy gets a huge shot to Levy. 5 versus 3. PPWS is wounded and low HP. And there's no coverage and they've lost to Monty. Daffodil will tap away, but Yex will get one. But the long arm deep inside a server denied by STK. It's gonna be a flurry of chaos and the DMR finds one more. But Tropicals on the Twitch to keep your team alive and force round 15. You're gonna make every single shot count. He'll tap away and find one. With a long arm by Swag might be enough, and cameraman's coverage is perfect. LFO taking in overtime.
I'm telling you, Fantasy is just built different. When I saw him on the LFO roster, I thought of what could be. I thought about the dreams and the way that he has played in the past, and he has popped off huge. LFO do not win the game without Fantasy and what he was able to achieve. And again, even though he got killed while trying to counter defuse, the way that he got aggressive with the Monty and got that kill was the foundation for that counter defuse at the end of the round. Oh, Whippet! Another absolute storming game that we have had in this day of play day of Brazil.
That is exactly what I wanted to come in this one. The last day of groups, you want these games to go the distance or as close as they can to it, and both our results now have went to overtime. What a matchup that was, and what I think a fitting final round. Absolute chaos from the moment that case went down. You didn't know what way it would go, and LFO take that OT victory. The result neither side would have necessarily wanted it going in overtime, but 2 points is 2 points. You can't turn your nose up at that.
There's a chance. It's as simple as that. That is the end of the regular season road for Tropicals. They're going to have to attempt to go through the last chance qualifiers. But now LFO got to sit and wait. They got to sit and wait and watch the results in the game later today to see if they go through. So here's what I'm going to say to you viewers at home. You guys are going to have to sit and wait because we're going to jump in a break. And when we come back, we'll welcome in Jacob and CDAPS.
Man, history really has a tendency to repeat itself in some cases because LFO have 2 victories so far in the stage, both of them coming win overtime victories on bank. Once against Black Dragons and then today against Tropic House. Now puts them at 4 points in their group, which still might be enough to qualify for playoffs. But again, it's going to depend on how MIBR and Black Dragons fares in just a couple of hours. For LFO's sake, they could have ended this thing with a full 3 and really shaken up the way that the group works out, but still, a win's a win.
A win's a win. They get those points, they needed it, but they're not going to be necessarily happy with the fact that it went all the way to overtime. They got very much pushed here, and while they have the potential to make it through that playoff stage, there's still gaps in the way they play that could leave them vulnerable as they go against stiffer competition as this stage goes on. And on just in this final round, look how aggressive they got to try and deny that post plant. That was honestly a pinnacle round for me. I loved watching it, and that's, I mean, perfect chaos unfolding, and LFO got the victory amidst it.
Yeah, and the mid-off, the really bad half of the 10th rated attacking team versus the 10th rated defending team, it didn't disappoint. There were plenty of what are LFO doing moments, as well as for Tropicaus of just pure confusion and utter chaos. But at the end of the day, Tropicaus didn't do too bad. Sure, the kill department does really swing heavily into the side of LFO, but at least keeping up with the really prolific fraggers like Fantasy in the entry department is still something that you have to tip your hat to Tropicaus for.
Yeah, you definitely do. When LFO were building the roster that they did, they were going to try and win these games of frags, and Tropicaus did manage to shut down some of those names, but you look, Fantasy completely obliterated that defense. 19 and 10, almost a 2 KD, really high impact on entry as well. And I always love looking at cost, and you look at the cost of most of those players on LFO, and they're all really trending above average. Honestly, I think for LFO, it's another brick put on the foundations that they're trying to build for this roster and what could be going forward. But they do find themselves in a situation now where they got to sit back and hope that MIBR will do them a massive favor a little bit later.
Yeah, they are now MIBR's biggest fans, but they need MIBR to beat Black Dragons in the very last playday, or very last game of this playday, by a really wide margin, because right now LFO and BD are tied on overall number of points. It's just a round differential problem at this stage, and because they've already played, there isn't really much of a head-to-head to speak of either. This is how close everything has now gotten. MIBR and Black Dragons play very last game of the day. Do you think there's realistically a chance LFO can jump up into 3rd place, or is the fact that this game went to overtime the death knell?
It's going to be really difficult because I think Black Dragons are hitting their stride at the right time, but the same exact thing can be said about MIBR, especially when having this 2nd seed. Sure, they might be locked in on it potentially, but if it swings in that regulation towards Black Dragons, dropping down to the 3 seed means you're going to have a significantly more difficult opponent out of Group B, which has been just as hotly contested.
Well, so let's just say for a second, and let's assume LFO somehow do qualify. The MIBR game goes the way that they want it to go, and now we see LFO make it as potentially a 3rd seed going into the playoff bracket. Gentlemen, from what you've seen from LFO, they've only won 2 games. They both came on the same map. They still have some inconsistencies they have to show up with their new guys. Fantasy looks like he's the right addition, but there still are some reasons to not be very confident about their performance. Do you think they actually could make a playoff run? Gibson, what do you think?
I don't know. It might be too soon just yet. I think the biggest problem for me is if you think of all the players being on the same tether, that tether's either way too long or broken entirely, because it does seem like they're playing as individuals from time to time. Again, they do have the time now to sit back and watch and work on what went wrong overall, but I do think that they need to fix the teamwork straight away if they want any chance whatsoever.
Whippet, were you at all impressed with the way that they managed themselves on their defensive half? Looked like Fantasy popped off, but that was mostly in overtime. So if that's their deficiency, do you think there's a foundation that they can build on to make their defenses better in the future?
It certainly is based off the fact that they relied a little bit on individual performance. And the big thing to me is the very similar kind of message to what Gibby was saying. They don't play together enough, and they give too many easy picks away that aren't traded. And that's a massive blow on the defensive side particularly. You want to hold that advantage, and realistically, you want to get that opening pick as many times as you can. It's such an advantage on that side. there's glimmers of hope, and I think if they can get that togetherness down, they might be a very dangerous time, but there's not a lot of time to make those amends and try and get that done.
Well, glimmers of hope might as well be LFO's tagline for as far as this stage is concerned. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll come back to you for Game 3. Connor, I think the MVP for this one is pretty much set in stone, because anytime you almost drop a 20 bomb, you're basically guaranteed to get it.
Wow, I'm surprised. I thought we were going to be cameraman and just start praising his off-the-server performance, but no,
I mean,
we have Fantasy.
And
he's been so good.
It's the individual thing, though. I think there were still plenty of times he was first death or he was trying to make a play outside the building that I look at and I go, it's ill-advised. He made it work out as much as this game required. You still don't want him to always play like that, but if he's going to be a statistical leader and play that kind of hero play style, at least he's doing it with this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, the stat line is just so good, especially to be so consistent. 80% cost in a 1.35 KPR in a almost max OT game is so impressive, especially when you look at that final round, the nail in the coffin for Tropicows being that huge 4K retake on Basement, which is by no stretch of the imagination an easy retake to accomplish. It's just so incredibly explosive when Fantasy is firing on all cylinders.
Well, we're going to put that one in our rearview mirror for right now because we don't know if LFO's qualified. There's still one more best of one in this group to go before we figure out if Cameraman's little experiment after FaZe Clan is actually going to push his team to playoffs and best of 3 territory with only a couple of weeks of practice. It would be mighty impressive if it happens, but we still have to wait back and see whether MIBR and Black Dragons goes the way that they're hoping for. There still is another group that we have to lock in, and this is a very, very actual rare do or die, win or go home. There are no other ifs, ands, or buts about this matchup. This will close out Group B for good. Winner is in playoffs. Loser is donezo and has to go to qualifiers. It's Los One and Ninjas in Pajamas.
Yeah, you would expect, seeing that they have the same map record and the same opponents, thinking like, hey, yeah, both of these teams lost to W7M. Both of these teams lost to FaZe. But yeah, or pardon me, Liquid in FaZe, and then they beat Magic Squad. But that's not the case, because NIP actually defeated FaZe and lost to Magic Squad, which just is hard to really wrap your head around. But at the end of the day, the overall implications for top 3 in this group are so incredibly complicated, Jacob. I need to pull out a calculator. I need to wrap my head around all these numbers because
I have
it's
graph
so
paper
complex.
in front of me right now. Yeah, I'm writing down the equation for what we have to do. So if NIP win, they're in. NIP lose, they're out. Team 1 win, they're in. Lose, they're out. That's it. You couldn't have more simplified stakes. You really, really couldn't. If it's difficult to wrap your brain around, I understand. Probably because some of you might be looking at Liquipedia and wondering, wait, Magic Squad is still in 3rd place. How is this even possible? It's because Magic Squad did not get enough points in their group stage to prevent themselves from being vaulted over by the winner of this matchup. So even if it happens in regulation or overtime, the winner of Team 1, Ninjas in Pajamas, is going to playoffs, and the loser is going home. That's it. We could not simplify this any more than that. Specifically for Los One, this is like the same team as ever because this is the longest standing BR core that we've seen, but the amount of excuses for them are running out. It seems like they're a fighting force and you really shouldn't underestimate them, but they've never been able to recapture the magic that they had when they went undefeated in that invitational group stage earlier.
Yeah, and this game is 100% where the rubber meets the road for Los One, because they've taken care of business against Magic Squad, and then they lost to the Titans that we know and love as FaZe and Liquid. So on paper, if you're just looking really quickly at a glance for this roster, you see, oh, they're 1-2. They can't be that good. But really trying to solidify themselves into a 3rd place spot does make sense, and I almost want to say that this roster is in a really good dark horse position, especially when you have a player like Maya who is really fulfilling the role that we know he is capable of so far. Across all of these games, he has been the shining light for Los One. Even in defeats, and especially in the victory, he has taken over maps and is spearheading this overall run for Los One that could come to fruition today. Most of the time, a lot of what you would expect for him would potentially be in the early round, but carving out the nice niche as a late stalemate breaker in the mid round has been absolutely phenomenal, where he brings momentum for the team where they need it most and overall makes them explode.
The top 5 rated players coming into today were Nade in 5th, Mortatow in 4th, Reduct in 3rd, Maya in 2nd, Volps in 1st. If we were looking for someone who might bud into another potential superstar down the road, definitely seems like Maya is the spearhead for this attack. Only problem is, on attack, they're only about mid-table. They're not nearly as bad as Ninjas in Pajamas have seemingly been so far for this stage, which is, I know, not the greatest segue into a team that's got 3 former world champions on it. But when we think about them logically, the only time we've ever seen them really wake up was their game yesterday against FaZe Clan after having 2 PC swaps being down 0-3. Like, they did prove that they're not just going to stay in bed this stage and take those losses lying down, because that bounce back does prove they have resiliency, but they only have 3 points through this stage, and there's still so many questions about what they're going to do in the future.
Yeah, one of the biggest questions is, what do they do with this opening pick? Because 19-12, it's definitely in the upper echelon of this league, but when you look at both of their round win percentages, you have to say sometimes their picks come at the sort of force of cheese, and they can't really build any momentum around it. However, when we talk about momentum, we've got to mention the support staff that we know we're giving a lot of credit to yesterday after those phenomenally long rehosts that really kept this team grounded and had them switching the momentum into their favor.
So we're going to look at a Wizard mostly for what he did from that previous game. We highlight him a lot because he seems like the guy who NIP put on their back to try and be the solution, the glue that was going to fix everything for them, because they only made one player change when Julia was out of the picture. They bring Wizard in, and then yesterday he's the reason why NIP win that game against FaZe. But is there anybody else that gives NIP any hope for a relative victory here?
You know, there's a really great Post Malone song that's the exact same title as this phenomenal player for NIP.
Nice.
The most consistent player we've seen so far is Mr. Psycho. So he's been kind of exactly what this roster has needed in every match so far. He has a 1.2 rating as a fragger, which is even more impressive when you see his 71% cost. The 1-2 punch of him and Wizard were so dominant yesterday in that big upset victory against FaZe that even has put them in this position. We thought the door was closed for NIP, they were dead in the water, and instead, if Psycho shows up once again, they could be punching their ticket into the playoffs.
Yeah, a big reason why we had confusion surrounding NIP at the start of the year was who's meant to play Yana, who's supposed to be primary in the building. When they played Liquid in that very first play day, that's 7-1, and 3 different people are trying to figure out who's meant to be playing fraggers. If they can shore that up, and it looks like they have, then they will be loaded for success in the future. But once they have those things far more regimented and sorted, before then, they weren't really going to find anything resembling a string of rounds that were going to actually win a game. So for Psycho to be in this position is great. Pino's still rocking the buck, like, classic Pino. He's been doing that thing for years. The only real problem now is Wizard stepping up overall, and the same thing for Muzi, because it feels like he very much has not been in the servers when he's been playing. Cons is the new guy, but Cons is doing what he was brought in to do. He'll get a kill on flank occasionally, and he'll open up walls, and he'll plant the diffuser. That's exactly what he was brought in to do. Only thing is, there are so far only 4 combined plants. Actually, no. 4 combined plants for NIP so far this stage. We'll see if that can change based on the map we're going to. Do we take an objective focus map, Connor? Do we try one that's more fragger oriented? What do you do if you're NIP or Los 1 in this do or die game?
It makes things so complicated because it's almost like these rosters have had revolutions in their map pool across different competitions. At the end of the day, for NIP, they don't like Theme Park, they don't like Oregon. They ban those out. Those are their auto bans. And for Los 1, pretty much their only auto ban would be Bank. However, after this, you can kind of say, it hasn't been banned yet, which is what I was going to say, that after the permabans go through, everything goes into chaos, and instead, the chaos gets magnified tenfold. The Los 1 team has only played this map a singular time, and it was a hefty 3-7 defeat at the hands of Liquid. Meanwhile, NIP, guess what their most recent game they played on Bank was?
When was that one again?
It was yesterday in a FaZe win.
Oh, that's crazy. See, I would question the decision for NIP to go for Bank over Cafe were it not for that result, because you're already hot on it. You figure there's some momentum you can build off of, and if you can get Wizard in the same form as you got him in yesterday, then more than likely you're gonna be fine. The only real problem here is that it looks very much like you're playing directly into Los One's hands. Because if this is their auto ban, and it has been pretty consistently for a couple of months, the fact that we're going here at all should be a bit of a red flag, especially if Los One are going to look at anything that NIP showed as weaknesses in that game yesterday and try to turn it to their advantage. Remember, NIP were down 3-0 in that game to FaZe before the long tech pause, before the PC swaps, and they got their heads in the game. So if Los One can get NIP down early again, it might just mean NIP can't come back from the grave on this one. Gibson, Whippet, this one's game 3. This question applies to both teams. How important would a good 3-point win here be for both of these teams' chances of turning everyone's initial impressions around of that 0-2 start? Like, obviously, if you win, you're in. It doesn't matter. But how important would a more dominant win be when they hit the playoff bracket? Gibson?
I think that it's not that big of a deal in this game. It is winning you're in. I think these teams, yes, a regulation win would be so good for their morale and confidence, but it boils down to simple maths, and the maths is yes, no. It's a 1 or a 0. You're either through or you're not. Get the win under your belt. If anything, Jacob, I would argue that maybe an overtime win would keep people looking down on them and keep thinking they're the underdog and actually improve their chances a little bit because people would underestimate them.
Whippet, you thinking along the same lines here?
Oh, yeah, reasonably, actually. It almost hurts me to agree with Gibby, but I actually do feel that while they're going to look at getting the win, that's the most important thing for them. Morale in a camp like this is going to be huge if they can get a big victory for either side. NIP turned kind of the tempo yesterday with that victory on FaZe. That could be a nice foundation to build upon. Lost one, they had a great run during the group stage of SI. Can they rekindle that fire and get going? And it could all start with a series of strong results. So, it could go either way for that one. And as you can see on our predictions, both me and Gibby have opted to go for NIP against you guys.
Mostly recency bias, and mostly because I think a lot of people would look at that bank game from yesterday and think it smacked of fluke, because circumstances in that game were wild enough as it is with what seemed like a 40-minute tech pause. Connor, you gonna stick firm on your prediction on this one?
It's hard. I do almost want to join our foreign brothers, but we need to band together as NA. For Los One, I think the bye week is going to have solved a lot of their issues. They've shown flashes of brilliance on both sides of the ball, on the attack, on the defense. Sure, they're below average on both, but their ceiling, I feel like, is so much higher than NIP's. NIP didn't go to Invite, so they couldn't have gone undefeated in group stage. And that's the form that we want to see Los One get back to, especially if they go to international competition, which I feel like they're going to get a good chance at.
Well, we love it when the stakes are as brutal as this. It's best of ones. This is the one opportunity you have to qualify for playoffs. Winner gets a chance to go to the knockout stage. Loser gets sent to the oh-so-cruel mistress that is the qualifier stage. It's Los One against Ninjas in Pajamas. Gibson, Whippet, have fun, lads.
Thank you, guys, and this is one that I cannot wait for. Two of the most storied names in CGK, which feels that way when you talk about most times BR, of course, Los One, or of course Team One back in the day, and obviously they're taking on NIP, who had all that success. But Whippet, you and I, we're not going to be talking in if, buts, and maybes anymore. We're only talking in absolutes. Win and you're in.
It's as simple as that. Yes, no in this situation. While we talked about what morale could do affect these teams going in, they want to have a dominant performance, they don't really care. They want to get themselves into the next stage of this region. They don't want to risk that cruel mistress, as Jacob said, of LCQs. They want to get that done right here, right now, today. And we've both agreed for a rare occasion that we think NIP can get the job done.
Yeah, and again, it's the hearts. We kind of go, we don't think about brains. We don't look at the way things went over the last year. It was how we feel about these two teams. And what we saw yesterday from NIP, especially after the delayed break, was just a really confident version of that team. Something we hadn't seen in a long, long time. If I was Los One, and I'm looking at the way they played yesterday, I would be a little bit worried, because they've just proven that whenever they do play with confidence, they win their gunfights. And there was so many questions about Wizard all through last year. Was he going to be that guy? Is he the player they need to change? They don't win yesterday without him, and he is going to be feeling himself going into today.
He went from that player on the team that perhaps a lot of people looked at going in the transfer windows. Would he be the one to get the axe? But I think he's firmly removed himself off that one. And there was a lot to take from that victory. They went 3-0 down. They had the resolve to keep battling and get themselves back. There's a lot of positives right now for NIP. But can they keep the momentum rolling? Because if they lose today, not only are they out, that might, to a lot of the naysayers, say that phase result was a bit of a fluke. And the team won't want that press about them. But Gibby, you have one chance. Are you going to change your prediction, or are you going to keep it locked in?
No, I think we're going to go EU versus NN predictions this time up it.
I like that one. I was wrong last time. I went for the only wildcard pick at everyone else. I don't know if that fills you with confidence, Gibby, that you've won on my side of predictions, considering my track record isn't so great during these. But you don't have to wait too much longer to decide who will be your victor. Bank is our battleground. Lost One versus NIP. Winner takes it all. Winner books themselves a seat to the next stage of this competition in the playoffs. Loser will have to go through the long road of LCQs. In the ban phase, Gibby, will we see another Habana ban? Will that be another huge factor in this match?
Well, we saw the impact it had last time around, so it's up to NIP with the first ban to decide if you want to remove that one. I think Habana will end up being removed, but it's going to be a Thatcher. Now, this is funny, because if you ban the Thatcher, now Los One might not want to ban the Habana. They might leave it on and focus on playing Kaid, and it's going to be Ying that's removed.
The Ying ban is, again, a massive use, or a massive tool for those high-pressure executions, and I'm not too surprised to see her banned away, considering her international ban rate is so high. Lost One take away Azami next, another super difficult operator to deal with. You think about the utility that she can have on those lines of sight in places like basement and open area. And this final ban, I'm intrigued to see what it is, as Kaid slips through. Valkyrie makes it without a Thatcher. We're likely going to see more of those Mavericks coming out, and we saw how long it took teams in our previous match to get through those hatches. This could be a massive problem for time, especially for Lost One starting on that offense. And yeah, we will see them gone that Maverick early.
Yeah, you can't use the Habana because the Kaid is going to be a bit of a problem, so Maverick will come out to solve some of those ones. Habana then, if they find a hatch that isn't going to be electric clocks, of course, you can only do 2 of them at a time. Habana will go ahead and get those other hatches open. So expect all of them to be open. I expect to see Vault hatch open. I expect to see the 2 inside of open area, and then the 1 inside square as well, because you want to get as much pressure on the site as you possibly can. And the big difference to me that I've seen from Los One, now I know that the attack lineup isn't fully locked in just yet, they're not going to do what we saw too much of in the last game, and that is rely on Monty for taking space inside of server.
It feels like the most I've seen Monty played in a very, very long time has been inside of VR, and it's been a very mixed bag on how it tends to work for these teams. Now, with Wizard being on that Oryx, you're going to be able to have that flexibility to go up and down, sculpt the map, especially in that middle floor. And we saw Ace's drone there, just toying with that pressure inside of Armory and Tellers. And triple hard breach on the boards here. That's a lot of commitment to it. Again, they have redundancies. You lose your Maverick, you've got Habana, you also have an Ace to work with, so they have lots of options to chew through this setup. But that IP, they played this map yesterday against FaZe, and they went here again today. Lost One would have been watching that game with a very intent eye, because they knew they're going to be playing NIP today. Have they shown their hand already? Will this bite them? Because they've played a lot of this already.
I don't know if I would argue that they've shown their hand, but they've definitely shown some of their tricks. But, you know, oh my, that is unfortunate right there.
That hurts. That
Collins
hurts
is fuming. He's fuming.
He's not happy. He is very much not happy. And again, this is another setup. It's going to be a deep hold inside of open area. These Castlebears will slow this push down, and considering that the hatches are opened up, they want to waste as much time as possible. But I think they might be intent to drop away at this point. Wizard will hold on, play in that corner, waiting for that drop, as Loban will be able to try and put pressure on from bottom square, and can crack those castles reasonably efficient with that hammer on the back of his shoulder as well. Pressure now, shots whizzing past Wizard. Muzi helps retreat, or helps cover him off now with a minute 40, a good time waste. A Psycho will put an impact to get rid of that drone, but he gives away his position. Dash will take a little bit of damage initially. Maverick outside still taps away, looking for another lucky wall bang.
Yes, so Wizard just stepping up, still playing inside open area. They've replaced the player, but Lobin is going to lob that nade in and see if he can catch it. Well, it's Lobin, sorry. Sprays this time around, but there's Mozzie to get the kill. And that's another member of Los One down. But there's Maya to trade that one back. It's a 4 versus 3, and now they have control of that open area part of the map. And with it, it's down to 3 faces that we know pretty well to hold back this push.
You have that core that lifted that hammer so many moons ago, a minute left to hold that in this very first round. Next engagement could be key. If NIP find it, Lost One might struggle in this one. Psycho in a great position to get aggressive on the stairs. And know that's a bait, knows the Claymore's there as well. Tower of Solace in full display. Sub 40 seconds to work with, you would say. You know, will creep and ascend up the blue stairs, will look for something, but I don't think they'll be close enough to find pressure. Yonatone spots him out, and this could be a very dangerous predicament to find himself in. He might get flashbanged out, but he peeks and gets one, he's blinded, but the spray gets 2! Absolutely huge for an IP, one of his teammates falls in the distance for a level 2v2, give me 20 seconds, and can they make it stick?
I love it. I love it. He played aggressive. He knew that his life was forfeit if he didn't get aggressive, and he did. So it's a 2v2, like you said. Wizard holding by red. They're going to sneak in through that hatch. They've stepped into the other side. Can Wizard have an impact in this round? He's making a lot of noise, though, so the cover is there. He peeks across. Maya gets one. He needs to win this one. He sprays across, but Maya is there. Gets the double. And Los +1 win a round. That could maybe be a statement in this fixture. Round 1 on attack.
Opening round, could have went either way. I think they called it a statement. It's a little bit of a reach, Gibby. Just a little bit. That opening pick that Maverick found all the way on the castle of cons, yeah, that's a little bit of a brutal one to take. And it's one of those lucky moments that you're going to take in a round like this. If you don't send the shot to the wall, you're not going to get a wall bang. You can't get that opening pick for free. So credit to the last one. They got that and they played perfectly around that. Up to open area we go with the second site for NIP. Question I have to say is, if we don't see an early pick go, and NIP can burn away the time, how do Lost One deal with that? How can they react to that effectively? Because it got a little bit scary there as that timer ticked down, and they already had that advantage, and they played around that very well.
Yeah, they did, and you're gambling every time you leave it down to a very late push as well, because had 1 or 2 things changed in that last 10 seconds, that would have been an NIP round again. So I like to see Lost One try to build on their earlier success. They got that opening pick very early on in an open area, and it took them a lot of time to really push up because there was an extra player playing inside open area for the side of NIP. So we're inside the action phase now. Dash gets rid of the cam nice, and they bring in the Nook on the board, and well, you talk about Nook's impact. You've got 2 nades in the back pocket. You can completely hide yourself from any cameras that are in and around the map. Let's see if Nook is able to pick up 1 or 2 frags in this one.
Opening pick goes for Loban, finds cons again. Opening death twice in a row. You'll feel that one. C4 lost. Have some spare ones, I believe, in the hands of Wizard. Mirrors will already be placed, but an aggressive push in bottom blue yields result. NIP first to fall. And once again, you gotta feel that that opening pick going inside of Lost One is a huge advantage. Already only seconds into the round, and you're looking at NIP fighting on the back foot. And for the side of Lost One, they can get aggressive. They can really try and brute force this execution very early on B. It's not a lot of members of NIP there to fight it. One player tucked in corner, but that quad wall is going to get cracked open, and they can walk this Monty directly inside and put that pressure on. They know where he is. The K calls keep him protected for now, but I don't think Wizard's going to be too long in this world.
Yeah, Maya's going to hold the angle. Wizard does have to swing at some point, but the minute that he goes to swing one place, Monty will just start to toy with his shield and force him to do some work. Dash steps up through, and Nook does get the kill to make it a 5 versus 3. Minute and 30 seconds left to go. Psycho could get himself in behind enemy lines as he plays inside, but there's Wizard falling onto Loban, and it's now a 5v2. This is absolutely clinical this time around from Los +1 as Los get that case down. Post-plant scenario, Pino and Psycho. Can the 2Ps pull this one back?
Against the full 5 of Lost One plus a Monty, yeah, this is going to be a difficult one. The Monty will spot out Pino, so the any element of surprise is now gone. Psycho will look to try and get a backstab, but at this point, with 20 seconds so we go critical, it is all but over. C4 detonates, nothing arrives from it. He'll give himself an avenue to get back in the site. They double up to try and find a trade. Pino gets one to Loban. Maya shuts that one down, and well, in a 1 versus 4. bearing down Monty's shield as well. It's all but over. Psycho might have found heroics, but that's going to be God who absolutely slaps him down.
Yeah, really big round coming again. Losing the mirror that early on didn't help whatsoever because they had a whole plan. They had a player playing inside of Janitor as well, playing on the mirror, looking in towards Square. Once you lose the mirror playing in that position, you can't play that position either inside of Janitor. And then Los One played it direct. They marched the Monty straight into sight. Maya sat in a little bit of a dance with, I think it was Wizard for maybe 10, 20 seconds, where both players were just daring the other one to peek. 9 times out of 10, the player holding the more shallow angle, which was, of course, Maya would win that one. And look at that, 5-0 after 2 rounds.
I mean, of course, you got to think about that in that situation with that Kaid close onto that quad wall. The player holding it's like going to win. We're on land for these players, so there isn't that peak disadvantage isn't as much of a factor. So you can kind of be comfortable. Players always talk about how you can sometimes just hold your angles a little bit more comfortably. And we see the arena trick getting set up once again on that server hatch. So basically, the player will sit on the box down below inside of dirt. They'll stand on that box, that deactivates it. When they see a hard breach or hear a hard breach deployed on it, step off it, destroys it instantly and burns away a lot of time. It's a very smart little trick, but it's a little bit more difficult to get that to work in practice or in actual rounds than it is to do it in practice. Sounds brilliant in theory. When you get into it, it's pretty difficult to actually make it work because a single player in dirt really disrupts that.
It does. It really does. I hate agreeing with you. Actually, I'm going to change the narrative here. You're right with it. That's good. You're right with this one. So good observation.
I've broken your will to being positive. Let's go.
I'm a nice guy. I tell myself
Allegedly.
that. But I tell myself that.
Allegedly, you're a nice guy.
Maya's already on the top floor. Psycho playing inside open area as well on the Kaid. But you wonder where the first engagement is going to go this time. Los One have found the opener, I think, on both rounds, which has really given them a massive opportunity to force their will upon NIP. For NIP, you've been in this situation before. 2-0 down on Bank. Happened just yesterday. Things aren't really in dire straits just yet. But Wizard missing that drone. He can't really focus on it now. You got to focus on the player, and the player's going to come, and he misses the chance to do some damage.
Difficult few moments here. And IP really need to not concede the opening pick here, Gibbs. That's the big thing for me in this round. 2 rounds in a row, Cons fell so early. And from that moment, Lost One had complete control. Oh, Hino creeps up. He's got a pre-placed smoke canister in case things get really desperate and dire. But they're doing a good job. They're not overextending. They're not losing their life early. And they're just biding their time. No one's boosted up on that box. So you can see that Aruni Gate's in full action. So they'll have to burn it before they clear it anyway. I believe they've already done that. Or at least they'll sacrifice some X-Kairos pellets to do so. And they'll begin working through those hatches in both CC and server at this stage. And they'll now turn their attention to clearing Hino, who's lurking on the bottom of blue stairs.
Hino was able to get a 2k the last time he played this position as he stepped through the flash, but Aeneid's a little bit more difficult to deal with, and he's going to get taken down as Loban steps on in. And that's something I love seeing players doing. They do it so well in competitive play. You toss your nade and you actually follow it, because usually you catch the player out when he's trying to retreat.
Chase that nade, it always gives you just a little bit of space. Psycho will get one, and that's going to be Loban who slaps him straight back down. The battle of servers continues, and Wizard's going to be able to find one there. He's going to get compromised, but a player in dirt, he doesn't know it's there. But it's going to be a bit of a mad scrap to get him. Maverick shuts it down. Now Collins left in a 1 versus 3. He was first to fall in the opening rounds, and now he'll be the last to fall if he can't find the clutch. Drone might not have seen him. He'll take it out no matter what. The dot will drop straight upon him and find that final pick. 3 rounds in a row for Lost One. And IP, perhaps a little bit daring to go back to Bank after you showed your hand against FaZe yesterday.
This is where they were yesterday. They took a timeout and everything went into their favor, but they've elected not to do... Yeah, they have. Never mind. They take that tactical timeout. Is the script going to repeat itself for NIP? It didn't repeat itself for FaZe earlier today. Are we going to go back to the future, or sorry, back to the past? What am I saying? I'm getting a film reference in there that I didn't even mean to do, but are we going to see what happened yesterday, or will it be the same as what happened in the FaZe game earlier? Do you think Los One are looking too strong in the early stages?
I don't want to say it. I want to have the hopium of a Nip fan in this situation, but I don't. It's too late to change my prediction now, isn't it, Gibby? Just a little bit.
We're locked in. We're locked in.
Yeah, Lost One looked to be in complete control. And IP, in the early stage of these rounds, are very slow, very lethargic, and that's an issue. if they're not conceding the opening pick, nothing happens until the very late stages of that round, and then they struggle to get control. Lost one from the moment they step in the building, aren't contested, and this is a pretty similar story to what we saw against FaZe for NiP yesterday. They just let FaZe in. They didn't contest the entries, they let them have map control, they let them sculpt the map in a perfect way. Timeout called, and I really hope they begin to amend that, because, well, yes, there's a lot of talented entries on the side of Lost One. Try and stop them getting map control for free. Muzi dons to cap down to try and get some free damage in the later stages of this round. But you're just a little bit concerned. You're just a little bit concerned as you're going to get a jump scare from us. Hello, we're back.
We got a jump scare from the producers, so you guys get a jump scare of us again. Fermi, you got to stop getting my heart going like that.
It wasn't as bad as the one we had the other day, but the script continues to follow itself, I suppose, as NIP now are still in 3-0 down. It scares me a lot that it's been a very similar story again, and that they've needed to call a timeout, 3-0 down again on Bank. Something needs to change, and if they can't find the leadership within the roster of players to do that, they need a coach to step in and say, hey, let's fight them more aggressively, not give them map control for free. There's problems there.
You're looking for maybe positives to take from the first 3 rounds for NIP, and the only round that they even came close was the first one. And even then, it was a 1v2 at the end, so you could argue it was still kind of stacked in the favor of Los One. So to me, they need to change almost everything with the way they're playing on Bank right now, because they're being shut down. They're sending players on the roam. They're getting shut down pretty early. They're trying to keep players close together, but they're not even getting the trade. Like, you think about the first round, you had 2 players playing in open area, but the kill came from so far away that there wasn't a chance of getting that refrag back the other side. So I think NIP need to change something structurally with this timeout across everything, not just like one little tweak. They need to change a lot.
It's the exact same situation against FaZe. I think they came out against FaZe so poor, and it's continued here again. But for Lost One, they have looked in complete control here. They have walked into the map with complete dominance and asserted control at every single stage. The very first round, lucky opening pick. The second round, they were very aggressive and got cons down in that basement and got that control early. They're a team that has a very clear structure that they're going for, and they're not deviating from that at all. And they aren't really making them deviate from it. They're not making it challenging to go through those steps. And that's the big thing that they need to do. As we get back in the action, you can get straight back to seeing, will this be a continuation of dominance for Lost One, or can NIP find a way back into it?
Where there's a will, there's a way. So let's see if NIP have the will to pull this one back. But you need to win 3 rounds in a row in defense just to get that 3-3 split, which you kind of want to have on Bank. You feel like if Los One managed to win 1, maybe 2 more rounds, it could be just easy ceiling for them whenever they get onto their defense. So what way have NIP decided to change their fortune? Well, to me, the only real change I see is Capcan coming in to bring in the Castle again, which they brought the first time they played here. You've got the Oryx again, which will be played by Wizard. You got the Smoke, which is pretty much a requirement to play this site. Well, but what do you see different, though, with how they're setting up? I don't see anything so far.
I think structurally, they're going to keep to a very similar setup, at least in core philosophy, right? The castle setup will be set up in open area. They're going to try and choke that out best they can and waste a lot of time. The key incentive is they cannot concede that opening pick. That's the thing. So, going into yesterday's game, it was NiP need to stop the plant. Now it's not die early, because that's been a difficulty, or not die first. It's been so difficult for them to do, and they have such a good entry stat across this season so far. Just got to be a little bit concerned in these early stages, and, well, at least they're safe. Maverick's not close to open air, so you won't get that lucky wall bang. But look at the presence. A lobby / garage take seems to be on the cards here.
Well, it's everything that Los One have done so far has worked, so why not try push that way? Dash is going to keep pressure on open area, though.
Look at this. Half HP through a wall again. Through a wall again in open area. He's going to try and fight it. I think he might begin to think about dropping down. The Lion Scan will hold him in place for a brief moment. The Tracers give away his position, and it's a game of chicken, but I think it's going to be Khan's first to blink. He'll fall back to sight, and I think they'll be more happy to keep him alive later on than lose him for that map control. But open area is basically free to get now.
He'll be delighted. 2 minutes to go in the round, and he still has the chance to have an impact this time around. Makes his way back up on top. I'm starting to see some attackers push through towards that vault side as well. As Lowen steps and now towards Garage. So it is that Garage push that you spoke about, but he will have to make a lot of noise close below. Dot's going to get the opener as Cons is going to fall. Another Lion scan coming in, freezes those defenders in place for just a little bit longer, and there's a chance for Loban to get a kill, but he misses it onto Wizard. Pino pulls it back. It's a 4v4 as a delayed trade comes in, but there's one pulled back. Musi takes him down though on the trade. Pino falls to Maya, who's now 7-0 on the server so far in this one. They've got players. Whip it.
Capcan trap goes off. Lion's going to have to leave Demino away from sight and away from the primary pressure of this push. One player in Garage, one in server, and I think they're going to try and get up and get the confirmation on that pick. They would have heard the detonation, and they might be able to hear him crawling around. Surely they'll be able to. They're so close to it. Loban takes a beating. Source of that's just unknown, Gibby. But this looks like NIP can get themselves a very first round. The technical 2 versus 2, and that's going to be the confirmation. But Maya gets one more, leaving Wizard all alone. And now he gets that confirmation, but he shows his hand. They now know he's playing on that hatch. The plant's going to go down inside of lockers, and the crossfire's held by Loban. He'll go down the main stairs, but look how close Sledge is, and he's fully aware of where this pressure will arrive. And it will be Maya who pops up from the case and gets that final confirmation. It looked promising. It looked it. Unfortunately, they couldn't get it done.
Maya, 2 kills per round average after 4 rounds. Not a bad start to this game for Maya, as he is going really, really hard in the early stages. This one, would you say that in the early stages, he's got the dog in him? And that is your way of agreeing.
That hurts. That hurts. That hurts. It sounds so wrong when you say it. I don't know what it is.
It's because I'm old.
It's just not a phrase that I imagine you saying. It is what it is, as it's 4 rounds for our last one. Nip. Nip, nip, nip. How are you going to be able to recover this one? It was a difficult road against FaZe, and you only had to get back from 3 rounds, and now you're 4 down. Opening pick conceded every single time from Nip. And they continue to struggle, and you're going to get jump scared by us once again. Ah!
I wasn't scared that time. I was ready. I was prepared. We were in way, but they've had their tactical timeout. Now they're going to have a tech timeout. The tactical timeout did not work whatsoever for them. They find themselves 4-0 down now on defense. Best case scenario was a 4-2. The best case scenario, though, was even just holding on to a glimmer of hope, because everything that they've tried so far, Los One have managed to shut down. And we're speaking a lot about the struggles of NIP. But we got to give credit to Los One. They're playing very good Siege game. They're finding ways to isolate those players. I like to say the best way to win a game is to divide and conquer the other team. And that's what they're doing. They're getting in positions where they're in 2v1s or 1v1s, and they're winning their gunfights and building on that success.
Yeah. I mean, they're able to get those openings, and that's the big thing. They're putting themselves in a position to capitalize upon every single thing that the Nip's giving them, and that's been an issue so far. Every round, they've got the opening pick. Every single round. That's a super impressive stat line going into this one. 4 rounds in, 4-round victory. 100% conversion on that opening pick. You got to think at this point, do you just bunker up? Do you not concede? Do you not try and play for it? Do you try and go into your shell, or will that just be more punishing for Nip in this situation? It's a very difficult position, and considering it is win this game and you're through to the next stage. There's no other ways about it. There's no fancy stipulation, no overtime or round difference. It is win and you are in. And right now, Lost One are very, very close to getting that done in a speedy fashion.
It's funny that you should bring up the point of NIP maybe going back to bunker and playing on site. When we were talking about them yesterday, before they took the tactical timeout and turned that game on its head, what did we say was one of their biggest problems? I'm going to let you off. I'm going to let you off the hook. They said it was confidence. They weren't playing with confidence. They weren't swinging. If you drop everyone back to site, you're conceding the fact that you don't have the confidence in yourself in your gunfights, and it's making it easier again for Los One. If anything, I would like to see NIP maybe turn up the aggression a little bit and try to play themselves into some form in this matchup.
I'd love to see that as well. I think it's the right thing to do as well. I think that they need to make it difficult for Lost One. They can't concede that space. Whether they have the confidence to do that or not, it's a different story, and I guess time will tell. 8 seconds till we go into the action phase. I'm really just so curious on this because I had so many high hopes for Nip coming into this one. And it's not quite delivered.
It hasn't. Now, I need you to remember the stat line in your head because obviously we don't know it anymore. But Maya is 8-0. As it stands, 4 rounds, 8-0. So, yet to give up his life inside the server. Won every single gunfight that he's been involved in. Can that carry on? That would need to be priority number 1 for NIP now, shutting Maya down because he's just carved through you like a hot knife through butter in the early 4 rounds. And they've brought out the Solace this time around, so going hunting now as cons, trying to find where the utility is being used, spotting those cameras. Okay, using an impact to get rid of a drone.
Yep. I mean,
you're a fan.
It's better. No, it's more. You know that the yep is not necessarily an indication of approval from me. I mean, yeah, sure, they get rid of the drone. It could be a waste. It doesn't really matter. The drone's gone at this stage. It's gone. No impacts to work with in case he needs some later on than a plant. He's not going to need to do that. No verticality, of course, to stop it. So it's not really the biggest waste. And hunt one more drone. Slowly chipping through that drone economy. He's got 4 of them so far. 4 removed. It's, again, what Solace is one of those primary roles that Solace has. Will it continue to be a factor, though? As a little bit slower on the last one at this stage. They've not found that opening. They're just probing for it. And at this stage, NIP need to be careful to not overextend. They've done a good job not conceding openings. They'll know verticalities arriving. Loban's going to be doing that with the breaching charges. Can they just be patient and not concede early?
I feel like they're that confident that they feel like if they just sit and wait that somebody from NIP is going to reveal themselves, and that's exactly what happens as Loban is able to take down Cons, who really isn't having the most fun on the server today. So now you've got your opener pick. Now you can start putting pressure. Nook now sneaking in through the basement from below. In the past, we've seen Buck being used below to open up that hatch in the corner of open area. Nook's got nades, so if anybody decides they want to hang around that corner, that hatch could become a deadly place to be in.
Opening pick, though. I don't often bet against the stat line unless it's for predictions. And yeah, this is going to be a dangerous one. 40 seconds or 45 seconds. The player in elevator is now being detected. Wizard is going to have to very much be careful with his life in the next few moments. He'll open up the elevator hatch and he'll try and drop on down. At least give himself that potential escape avenue. That hatch cracking open has alerted the player down below, but Maya's lurking around him. He's circling around my bottom elevator. And while he's won every gunfight he's been in, will that trend continue? No, it won't. Wizard hands him his very first death for this one, but Moosey will be suffering at the hands of Dots, who gets that job done. 20 seconds, a little bit of pressure begins to build. Advantage held by Lost One, even more so now as Loban walks in flying Psycho. Pino gets one trailer back, but he's the last man standing. K-Channel is in Kansan. Nope, he can't. That shuts it down. Lost One take a 5th round in a row. 5th round.
Our American colleagues are loving life right now with their prediction going up against us. They're gonna...
Yeah, listen, they can be smug about predictions all they want, but where's the hammer? That's all I'm saying. It's in the EU where it belongs.
Oh, they're gonna love that one. They're gonna love that one right there. And guess what? One of the teams playing in this has lifted the hammer before, NIP, having success on the biggest stage. But it's been a while.
It's true. It's been a very long time, Gibby. A very long time it feels for anyone who supports the Ninjas in Pajamas. And they wake it up.
There's an old saying where people would say, you know, they're not as good as they once was, but they can be as good once as they ever were.
Well, no, you can get... It took you a few extra words to get there, but I like it.
Well, my tense is wrong. I'm not seeing that from NIP today. This is definitely not the same side. Even though they've got a lot of the same pieces, it's just difficult to watch for NIP fans the way this is going, because Los One are a good side. And NIP fans will still say that those are very good players that they have on the roster. But Los One are dancing around them. They're having fun with them. Even whenever they finally deal with Maya in a 1v1, other players have picked up the work. And Wizard almost gets the long spawn peek as he looks over from that Kanto spot. Well, I think for NIP, that's just been the story of how this game has really gone.
It's just been narrow margins, at least in these ones. And again, we've had 5 rounds in a row. Lost one, opening pick. 5 rounds, opening pick conversion to winning that round. 100% on that stat line is very impressive for it. On 6 detonates across the map. Rings out very loudly. Might alert some of those NIP players to some pressure. Dash on the window will try and lock everyone down. Pino cautious of that window. I wonder, we've already seen one Gridlock swing through this window and have a huge impact for a team today. Will we see a second one? Drone goes out and, well, a very window-heavy play. Dots will go move up and open up this Canto wall. I'd imagine he's cautious of Office, doesn't want to get caught from B. Pino's lurking for it. And a Selma charge sent deep inside of sight to chew open that wall on Janitor. And Dash gets the opening pick. That's your Warden gone. That's Pino. And this is a problem now, as they can use the smoke grenades to force an execution via these windows and the hands of Gridlock.
Yeah, tough situation to be in now. Echo's going to need to move those drones to see if he can identify where any of those attackers are. They need something to get the sides back in their favor. The only thing is, with the Warden, the only thing they really had was stuns and the two smokes from Gridlock, but Gridlock's still not making a move onto site. You're seeing the player and Janitor drop and below, and that's Oryx, as he will reposition himself now over by Square. Loban is going to get some damage, but Dash finds another one. Wizard trades back Maya, but Cons is in position to get off the mark. He takes down Dotsira, and now Wizard with a big chance. Loban gets one, Wizard gets another. It's a 2 versus 2. Loban doing even more damage to the side of NIP, but it's now a 2 versus 1. Wizard stepping up through Banana. There's a player holding him on one side. The Gridlocks will go off on the other side to just prevent them from being able to push in through sight. Now they got to get that case down. Intel being passed back and forward. They know exactly where Wizard is. Whip it. The case is going to go down. There's the smokes. This is a losing battle here on defense for NIP.
When this case goes down, it forces a 1-on-1 gunfight, but that window's been missed. Lots of damage done, but Gridlock will survive that with the extra armor. Wizard knows he's gonna fight a losing battle. One player vaults out, he's got one more to find, but both on a single point of HP. Dash peeks around and lost one. Get a 6th round. Gibby, they are already on map point, qualification point. We've only seen 6 rounds played.
Remember we had the conversation with Jacob and CDAPS, and they asked us the question, was it important to win this very convincingly for either of these two sides? Did they think that walking over the other one would give them a little bit of a benefit going into the next round? And I was kind of like, no, winning's the most important thing. 7-0 though, that's a big statement from Los One, especially considering what NIP did to FaZe on this exact same bank yesterday. For pride of NIP now, I kind of want them to win a round. But at the same time, there's a scoreline that exists that has a specific name that you kind of don't want to see coming out here either.
I can see it. You don't want to generate it. You don't want to manifest it. But let's be fair. Lost One on the precipice of a flawless victory here against NIP on Bank. A map that they beat FaZe on yesterday. And just a lovely reminder for you. There is no fancy stipulation. No extra demands on these teams. It is as simple as win and you are in. Lost One. 1 round away from locking in that top 3 finish and getting themselves to the next stage in the playoffs. NIP, a long, long road. The chasm of LCQ has opened up beneath them. Can they survive one more round, or will it be over quick?
Well, that is down to them. You look at the attacking line. They brought 2 DMRs in the back pocket as well as they look to take those long-range engagements. Loban makes his way on the top floors. The Oryx, but of course, as one of our NA colleagues like to say, Bluey's the fastest operator in the game. He can go from place to place pretty quickly as Pino gets himself in place quickly in the round. 2 minutes and 10 seconds to go. And they've got players on top floor. But surprise, surprise, sight as always tends to be is down in the basement, which, as you like to say, can be a gimme.
It's typically one of the strongest sites. You need a lot of coordination to hit it. It's very similar to how you'd imagine like Oregon basement, for example. It's a difficult one to hold on or break down on the offensive position. Minute 50. No opening engagement, but Lost One. They're not going to really take any risks. They're not going to go upstairs. They don't want to give this. They want to have this as a clean lockout. And look at the number of castle barriers. And NIP don't have a lot of soft destruction to deal with it. In fact, they've got none. So these castle barriers are choking out so much time. We saw the Maverick Torch use to clear one by elevators. And every single second that burns away is an advantage and 1 foot closer for Lost One to making this jump to playoffs. Charge opens up. Gets that hatch available to the side of NIP. is it going to be enough utility? Can they break this deadlock? Because that castle barrier will stop them getting aggressive and pushing themselves into red.
There's the hatches open now as they put a little bit more pressure on, but Dot's going to move in towards that vault side. Maya still playing the long angle on the bomb chassis. I'm still looking for a way that NIP can get some positivity out of this round. They managed to pop that Goyo, which will slow time down just a little bit and buy them some time as they get later into the round. Cons now drops below. He's going to open up this wall. The plan is being drawn. They're going to try to do it. Dash gets the opener, making it a 5v4. But are NIP going to go down with a roar or a whimper? Right now, they're not making very much noise at all. Dash playing by red, still with the C4 in pocket. Muzi playing above with nothing to do. But it's an old-fashioned 20-second push coming in. All of NIP's hopes lying on this round. Maya makes it a 5 versus 2. Lion's going to step forward, but Dot's there to get it back. And that is the final kill. The TCSG echoing out one last time in the round as NIP. I asked if it would be a roar or whimper, but like I said, Whippet, it is all quiet on that front. Los secure their spot through to the playoffs.
What a statement that is. A flawless 7-0 victory locks in Lost One to their position in the playoffs. And as much hopium as I had for NIP, it simply vanished in the thin air. Ninjas dropped their smoke bomb and they've exited from the group stage like that. In not a way I think any team would have intended to do so, but domination from Lost One all the way through that. Yeah, done quickly. What a statement.
RIP or predictions, but the way I look at it is if you're going to be wrong, try be wrong in the largest margin possible. 7-0. We were on. Credit to Jacob and CDAPS on getting that one right because they did the stats. We went with our hearts, but it was a tough one for NIP fans, but thankfully there is still a road to Denmark potentially with those LCQs. But any final words before we jump into a break?
No, Gibby, unfortunately, the hopium has failed me, but I tell you what, we have 7 dominant rounds from Lost One, the breakdown. We'll go to a quick break and we'll be back with our desk.
When we were looking for a game that mattered to go the distance, we certainly got the opposite of that here. We go from an 8-6 into a 7-0. It looks like NIP have now firmly lost the plot. Los One looked like they came in to today on the back foot. Both teams, on some level, technically did, but Los One had plenty of time, made sure to take NIP to a map that they themselves have not played for a long time. The NIP themselves just played yesterday. And, well, the writing looks like it's really on the wall for NIP fans at this point.
Yeah, I think what you would really want to say is that it was not good at all. They didn't really do anything at all that makes me think they could do something in LCQ. And it's sad, because NIP are a name that carries weight inside of Siege. But you got to give credit to Los One as well. They were phenomenal. You spoke about it. They found a way to isolate the game. But the thing you said at the start was looking for a game. Los One are still looking to see where their opponents were in that last game, because it was probably the easiest game they'll play maybe this whole calendar year, not just this stage.
Yeah, and for NIP, they looked so good and that they were going to improve so much after beating a strong FaZe roster, but instead they have a negative 46% drop in their average rating, while Los One on their bye week decided, hey, we're going to improve by an even bigger margin. Absolute dominance in pretty much every facet of this game, including flawless entry across the board for Los One. Everybody above a 1.0. For NIP, everybody below 1.
It hurts so much. NIP looked like they could have set the fire beneath them and found some strength after a massive victory against FaZe, all just to fall a little bit flat there. Their team average cost was 34% across that map. That is, you'd look at a single player and go, oh, it's a bit rough, but when a whole team gets to that point, it's a scary one. They didn't have a single chance of that matchup, and Lost One were just too much to handle.
I find myself in the very unique position of having to award an MVP for what was effectively a terrorist hunt. I think this might be the first time we've given an MVP award to a game that was that one-sided. Any takers on who it is? We highlighted him at the beginning, and there really isn't anybody else that it could be, Connor. It's Maya once again.
Yeah, it makes me really happy that I really focused in on how good he was in the mid round, because even though he was 11-2, not a single kill came as the first. His teammates, they were the ones getting the entry engagements, and for Maya, he just was fragging out in the mid round. In the late round, he was just taking over rounds entirely by himself, propelling his team forward with a 1.94 rating, which, if the math goes through, might just propel him into the #1 spot, leapfrogging Volts.
He makes sure that they get the spot from Group B in the playoffs, and it now means that NIP are locked as the bottom squad in the group, the worst round differential. There are some moments, like with Team Liquid and FaZe Clan, that make it look like a really strong region that could go and dominate internationally. And then there are other times with NIP that just make it look like a farmers league, Gibson. I don't know how the hell we ended up getting here, but NIP seriously need to retool.
NIP don't know how they got there either. It's been just what seems like setback after setback after setback for the last now 14 months. Last year was really poor for them. This stage has been really poor. I know the teams are going to have a lot of, love for their teammates and the historic names, but maybe they really do need to look within now and think about what changes that need to be made. But on the bright side, the teams that did go through looked pretty strong. Los One were very impressive today. Liquid probably looked like the best team inside of the region. W7M, another team that qualified, looked great. So as bad as NIP were as well, you got to give some credit to how good some of the other teams in that group were.
You know what? I honestly can't think of a better time after a 7-0 to just lean back in my chair for a second and do yet another rendition of Toxic Takes. Gentlemen, you know what the rules are. 10 seconds to respond to the take that's on your screen. You must give your honest opinion. You must get the full point out in that given time. And the more ludicrous of the logic that you use, the better. So put on your tinfoil hats and get ready for the hate DMs on Twitter later. Here we go. Take number 1. NIP are still stuck in the meta from 3 years ago. Gibson, go.
Yeah, totally agree. I think they haven't changed their play style at all since they won SI. They probably need to make some changes now. My heart breaks for them, but, all things come to an end.
I mean, hey, he's spitting facts, unfortunately. Whip it, go.
They lifted a hammer and they wanted to raise a dynasty around it. Unfortunately, the world just moved on and left them in the dust. Nip need to rework, retool. Something just isn't working.
Yeah, dude, got that one out before the time was even done. Connor, do we have a dissenting opinion or no?
No, I'm in the same boat that Nip are essentially Uncle Rico talking about the old glory days where they used to be able to throw a football over a mountain, but the mountain is absolutely crumbling and rock bottom is being hit for Nip.
Really shouldn't have dropped Kamikaze or Julio, unfortunately. Take number 2. FaZe, Black Dragons, or MIBR will gatekeep W7M from another semi-final. Connor, go.
I think that is very fair. Even though W7M topped their group, you could argue that the other teams in the other group is a little bit stronger, and W7M still have weaknesses.
Hey, you guys are getting better at this. We're only on day 2. Gibson, go.
For W7M, if they want to avoid tripping over those teams, they need to focus on that entry and keep it going. KZ is the king of that side, and they need to back him up.
All right, dude. Yeah, again, you guys are you're killing it on this one, even though everyone has the same opinion. Whip it, go.
They might have got second place at SI, but I have a feeling this new roster might find themselves being choke merchants. I see them throwing away a semi-final.
Man, even if it's Black Dragons, we might have to revisit that one. Prompt number 3. This one's my favorite. Reddit says Fantasy is the best player in the world. Whip it, go.
Oh, well, he's competing with every single player on CAG. Anaton still plays, so it's pretty difficult to say that. But at least in VR, he's the best, but he can't challenge the GOATs on CAG.
Connor, go.
This is a really hard question, but I think there's too many players over in Europe. As much as it pains me to say that Europe is one of the better regions right now, all the players on G2, I think, sadly, clear Fantasy.
Gibson, what do you think?
Based on the players around the rest of the world, he's definitely in the top 5 in his role, but I think Benya and Spoit are still clear.
Man, okay, you know what? Hey, can we just cut this one off early, because I gotta get clarification. Whip it, did you just say Anaton is the greatest player in the world?
Have you seen his multi-drop shots? Have you seen what he's capable of doing?
I've seen them. Does that mean he's the greatest player in the world?
Yes, absolutely. I will never say anything negative against CAG because they've never lost an SI Grand Final. They're the best team in the world.
They've never lost an SI Grand Final. They haven't even been to an SI Grand Final.
Never lost one.
Gibson, do me a favor. If you can drive over to his place real quick and see if he's huffing the copium, and if he is, take him off it, because we still have one more game to go and I need you guys at full strength. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. We're going to take a quick break while Gibson does a check on his duo, and when we come back, it'll be with MIBR potentially gatekeeping Black Dragons out of yet another playoff stage. See you in a bit. It's the final matchup of the day and the final matchup of the group stage of the Rainbow Six Brazil League Stage 1 before we head to playoffs and the knockout stage coming up next week. I'm Jacob, he's Connor. This is the end of the road for all intents and purposes for possibly Black Dragons. MIBR have already confirmed their status in playoffs based on how the other Group A matchup went earlier in the day, which means Black Dragons are just fighting for their spot. They're looking to vault over LFO in the current number 3 position. And honestly, this is the matchup I think I've been waiting for all day simply because of how evenly matched both teams seem to be right now.
Oh yeah, these teams both have incredible upside, but they've also faltered just enough to keep things interesting in the middle of the table and have a really high stakes game. Even with the earlier implications of confirming MIBR, they're still in do or die mode because you either get to play against Los One or you get to play against FaZe, depending on your seeding. So for Black Dragons, if they get that regulation, almost said relegation, regulation win, they'll lock in the 2nd seed, and they will also, having an MIBR win, will have LFO be super happy.
So you can take a screenshot of this, and you can just remember this throughout. I'm pretty sure we will also pop it up during the middle of the game in case you're unfamiliar with what the stakes are. But MIBR themselves are already in. They don't have to worry about it. It's just a matter of whether they're in the 2nd seed or the 3rd seed. If Black Dragons were to make it in, it needs to be basically as the 2nd seed because LFO have the possibility of just staying exactly where they're at if MIBR were to trounce them in this game here. And just from a historical precedent, this is not the only time that Black Dragons and MIBR have gone head-to-head for a potential playoff spot. If you cast your minds back to when MIBR were good in 2021, there are 2 consecutive stages where it was between the 2 of these teams for the final spot in the Copa Elite 6 that back then determined the way that Brazilian and Latin American teams would go to major events. So for a team like Black Dragons, you need to basically break that curse because right now that record is 1-1.
Yeah, and it's rough because for Black Dragons, they're right on the cusp of starting over. And you want to believe in them, especially when they've had strong results like that bouncing win against W7M that just makes you want to believe in this team. Then they instantly trip over themselves in Tropicals, and you're just like, what is this team?
Still, the best thing that this team has managed to produce is Live, because he had stints on FaZe Clan and Double Zero Nation for a long time. We didn't know what the best place to incorporate him was, but now he's back on a Black Dragons team. Connor, is he any better now that he's in this role?
Yeah, this is the middle of the bounce back arc for Live, and he's looked so dang good during this stage, even after those really middling performances on FaZe and Zero Zero Nation. Most people wrote this man off. They said he didn't have the chops. He couldn't make it. But now he's hitting his stride at the right time. He's having phenomenal stats across the board and could be potentially propelling Black Dragons back into relevancy.
Well, for MIBR, the team that has already locked their playoff appearance, I would say they're probably developing like Black Dragons are, but they're doing it faster because they've had to bring 2 players in that haven't had Tier 1 experience or haven't had it for a while. They have 6 points over teams that they were natively projected to be better than. Like, they only dropped their first game to W7M, and they've looked good since, and it feels as though they're only getting better.
Yeah, and constantly, once again, hitting your stride at the right time is perfect for MIBR because you're about to get into the BO3 territories. You're about to have to play a lot harder opponents every single step of the way. You don't get these stat pad games like your Tropicals and your Magic Squads and stuff like that across the 2 different groups. But if we want to highlight one player in specific, it's how personal of a game this is for Perez.
Because this is his old team. He played for Black Dragons during the Jönköping Major run, and he was probably the primary reason they were even able to get out of the group stage and go to the quarterfinals in Sweden in the first place. And then he got dropped from that team. It was a mutual decision among Black Dragons to remove him from the roster. Maybe it was a sign of good things to come because Perez has not been able to find his same footing so far in this stage. It makes you wonder if he wakes up how much more dangerous MIBR could be.
I think yesterday against LFO, going 1-6 on entry was hopefully the rock bottom for Perez, where, like you just said, he can find his footing, he can really get a nice bases and jump back up that scoreboard, especially because this is a revenge game. This is personal. I know that you guys had eyes and you saw those kind of atrocious stats, but I really do think he can bounce back.
So what do you do here if you're Black Dragons? You need to get the leg up over MIBR somewhere in this ban phase because MIBR are the bouncer at the entrance to the club, and they're not going to let you in unless you basically beat them to death. So what do you do here?
You know, Cafe, that's Black Dragon's permanent ban. Clubhouse and Theme Park for MIBR, all of those go away. And that means right now the overlap ban of Villa is the most important, and because MIBR were able to avoid banning that map, they get to kind of swing the map into the favor of Bank, which is a really interesting matchup for both of these teams. They both have an affinity towards the map, not really banning it too much, but they both also have a negative record. Black Dragons, they're 4-5, while MIBR, they're just 1-2.
So right now, LFO are MIBR's biggest fans, because if MIBR deliver a big enough loss to Black Dragons, it means LFO qualify for playoffs and go on to face FaZe Clan on nothing more than 4 points. Right now, that's the total amount of points that Black Dragons have, and MIBR are just the ones smiling at the entrance, about to let one team in, or maybe rather not. Gentlemen, we're just going to leave this at a very raw prediction state. No additional questions are required because this is the last game of our group stage. Whip it. Who's taking this bad boy?
I have to go with it. It's MIBR all the way.
You even have to count. Wow. He pulled that out of the closet like a shill. Wow.
Biased caster, I'm going to go with Black Dragons. They've got more to play for in this one than MIBR. And Jacob, to let you know, I did check on Whip It during the break, and you know those pest control tents they put up outside the house?
Yes.
It was one of those with massive tanks of copium turned on the outside, and I accidentally stumbled inside, and I've been huffing it too.
Strung up with caution tape in it. Wait, you've been huffing it too?
The copium, yeah. I'm a CAG fan too. I'm sorry.
That's regrettable. I think, well, so hold on. You did say Black Dragons, right? Defend your rationale. Like, tell me why your partner is so far out of his way picking MIBR in this game.
Well, he's got the MIBR, I don't want to say bias, but he's got a lot of love from that org for what they achieved in the past. Black Dragons, though, they're the team that have got something to prove. This game for MIBR, they can afford to lose it. They could get beat 7-0. And all it really changes is their opponent in the next round. But you got to play the best to be the best anyway, so that shouldn't be in their mindset whatsoever. Whereas Black Dragons know that if they win, they go through, they manage to get into the playoffs, and I always say the team that has got something to play for is always the more dangerous one.
Well, we thought that the stakes from last game were the most simple that it could be, and we're only accelerating it a little bit more for this game. It's very, very simple. If Black Dragons win, they're in. If MIBR wins by any stretch of the imagination, then somehow LFO has the possibility of getting in. Black Dragons, it's do or die. MIBR could save strats for all we care, and the result would only change a little bit. One more game to close out the group stage of the Brazil League before we head to playoffs next week. Gibson, whip it, get it.
Thank you, guys, and this is it, the last game of the regular season of Brazil, and it still matters for both of these sides in a little bit of a way, more so for Black Dragons, but this is everything you want whenever you're casting on the final day. But we've gone for opposite sides of the fence here. You've gone for MIBR. I've gone for Black Dragons. I think either way, this game should be a lot tighter than the last game we saw.
If this game's a 7-0 either way, I will be very, very shocked indeed. We went different ways, I think for different reasons, right? You always believe the team with bigger stakes are going to be able to play a better game. I think MIBR might be able to edge this out one. Actually, no, not even a might. They will be able to edge this one. I think they are a better side on paper and get this job done. I'm definitely not biased in any way, shape, or form. Ignore the hat I showed you all on stream. I promise you, I have no affiliation with that one. So, Gibby, you ready to get into another game of Bank?
Damn right I am. Let's get into this one. Whip It, you said there's more pressure on Black Dragons. Pressure makes diamonds, though. But we're going to get into the ban phase. Will it be a Hibana? Will it be a Thatcher? It's going to be the Hibana. So we're going to see something a little bit more akin to what we saw last time around. I think getting to defense, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves. I would like to see Kaid banned from defense now that Hibana's been removed.
Okay, you know what? You know what? I agree. Yes, you're correct, Gibson. We're going to change this. I no longer constantly disagree with you, nor I hate to test my agreeing of you. But Dokumi's going to be the second attacker, and the first defender being waved goodbye is that Valkyrie. So this is in that all-important moment, right? Thatcher's available, so buying out a Kaid's not going to be high on the priority list. I'd expect, you're looking at a Azami or Mira here. Those would be the top two, but I've been wrong all day with my final defender pick, so who will it be? It's the Mirror, so at least, I hedge my bets with that one a little bit, and we get that Mirror ban. Easier to deal with her in the ban phase than it is to do with a lot of the sites on this and he can mold it in a very difficult way to break down over time. So here it is. One final game in the group stages of Brazil for stage 1 of this year. Who is going to take it? Will MIBR be able to lock and gatekeep Black Dragons and send LFO to the playoffs? Or can Black Dragons hold the line and punch their ticket to the playoffs? So much on the line for this one. You absolutely love to see it.
You know for a fact LFO are right now the biggest MIBR fans in the world. The round difference is so incredibly close that if we get to the point where MIBR managed to win this one 7-5, I think that's enough for LFO to get through. And here's the fun one, because even though LFO were a relatively new team, they don't even have an org yet, the players in that team carry weight in the community, and they're going to have a lot of fans. So no doubt their fans will be MIBR fans for the day as well.
They're joining my side. If you want Cameraman to go up against FaZe, his former team where he built a legacy in the playoffs, you want MIBR to win. So you're going to be on my team for this one, everyone.
I kind of want that, not going to lie.
Yeah, you want that now. See, now that you're realizing that you can have, Cameraman, whose legacy was always burnt in. You know what? Right, there's an image of a Cameraman burnt into my mind. The Milan finals, where he was stood on the camera podium where the camera operator normally is, in that FaZe jersey. That's burned into my mind. No longer with the organization. He could get revenge on them if MIBR take victory here. Convoluted storyline, I know, but time to get into this action between these two teams.
So Nigel, who came up with a couple of clutch plays against LFO yesterday for MIBR, will be the first person to enter the map as he gets hot droned in. Player drops down through the hatch inside elevator in the distance, and he pre-fires towards main stairs, but there's nobody there to find. But again, it's getting active from MIBR that's pretty old school. You don't see a player playing on Iana being hot droned in as much now as you would have seen maybe a year ago.
Yeah, I think more teams need to do it. I mean, some of the most successful entries in the world are based upon players being, behind them. I mean, listen, all I'm saying was, when Spoit was in EU, he was one of the best in the world because they had people like Deepak droning him in, able to have that solid information. And, things change when he doesn't have a hot drone anymore. All of a sudden, his numbers don't look as good. Still a fantastic player, of course, but just there's the impact that having a direct drone can do and not leaving one player to kind of free roam around them.
So the droning is still going on. This time it's Nigel. His roles will be reversed as he begins to use his utility to see if he can spot any of those defenders. But they find that everybody has now bunkered themselves on site. 1 minute and 20 seconds to go. Nigel has the player on his back. He's got the prep drone in position as well, so he can see if anyone decides to push up those marble stairs. But you got to get those hatches open now. So much time has already been used. And I like this. They're using the EMP to get a utility, but there's the pop on the Goyo. So the player inside blue will fall back to the bottom and just wait a little while longer, but will not give up that position of power just yet.
Difficult position is with 50 seconds. You're really scared at this moment. The opening pick's going to go in favor of Black Dragons, and now you got to feel that MIBR might funnel in one by one. Nigel gets one trader back, but he gets himself caught in the crossfire. Falls going to get one more of the proxy, and well, with 40 seconds, Luke Kid's deep inside his sight. He's got a DMR in his hand, his teammates all around him. They're going to find another one-for-one trade for the team, and Redux alone upstairs. No direct avenue to sight. The hatch is open. He'll have to drop it in. That will be very audible. Pace is cold. Has to get recovered. The smoke grenade will give them a little bit of visibility, a little bit of coverage. And they get this job done. What's on in? We'll try and get this locker's plant stuck. Hence few moments. Final 10 seconds. Redux cover needs to be good, but the shotgun's even better. Goes down, but Luke is alone. And he's going to get finished off by Ion. And the very first round goes to Black Dragons.
Case went down, but Black Dragons kept their cool and they win the first round on defense. So MIBR, they spent a little bit too much time clearing out the map, in my opinion. 1 minute and 20 left on the clock before they even started to get pressure on those hatches, and that made it a little bit difficult to execute that push towards the end of the round. Flurry of action inside the middle, which is always fun to see, but whip it. If you're a Black Dragons fan and if you're an LFO fan, they're going to be thinking very different things about that last round. Black Dragons win the first one, take a lead, but there's still a long way to go before they lock in the spot in the playoffs.
It's only the opening round. Then, listen, I don't trust myself. No, there's no numbers on screen. I can read this words. I can do this one. Black Dragons get a regulation win. Yeah, it's too confusing. There's a 2 and a 3 there. Go for it.
If Black Dragons win in regulation, they move to second spot. MIBR drop to third. If this one goes to overtime, or MIBR win, it looks like LFO will sneak in that final position based on that graphic.
It's all the CAG hopium fumes in my house at this point. Can barely concentrate, can barely read.
You've been on that hopium for years, though. You were the first European I know of that picked up on that trend.
Listen. If you see any CAG flags floating around at majors, it might have been my doing. Just saying.
We want more. The crowd wants more, but unfortunately, things didn't go too well today for CAG. But will things go a little bit different now for Black Dragons? They got the round win that they needed in the first one. They move up to the top floor now. They take down Castle to somewhat reduce the impact that those windows can have inside of the round. And Stemp leaves the other windows open so he can peek towards Reduct if he elects to get on that ATM's rappel. So if you're on the MIBR side, how do you approach this round? Well, you do have the utility to get rid of those castles. You've got the Ash, you've got the Zofia. That'll make quick work of those castle barricades if you want to push in that way. But it's a very entry-centric lineup. The Ana and the Ash and the Zofia. I know Zofia is not quite the operator she once was, but still, this is an aggressive lineup when you add in the Monty to the mix too.
The thing that scares me about this is that normally you would see teams have some form of execution-heavy operator in this lineup. Normally that tends to sit with that Ying, and that's not available in this situation. You're not bringing it. The Monty is going to be the primary vocal point of this push. You need to send the Monty up Spiral Stairs and contest Banana and Trump all day long. Now, there's no one behind him to clear that space, so he's a little bit alone. They're relying on the person repelling the lockdown Kanto. The smoke canister will get one tick on the Redux, and the pressure, they'll peek him, and they'll hold him in place. He can do nothing without support, and if MIBR don't support the Monty, they put all their chips on the wrong horse.
Yeah, Monty's trying to push up those stairs, but as you can see with the barbed wire, it's having an impact, but Perez manages to sneak in from square and gets the kill onto Stemp with a headshot. Nigel's backing him up over on the square side. Monty's a distraction, but there's the refry coming back from Nigel. He almost gets the player over on the side of Stock, but he's still in the round. It's a 4 versus 3. One of those players is Monty, and this is where his value would usually go up, provided he was with the push, but he's just being a nuisance, being a distraction over by those gold stairs. Another swing comes through. Ash will get the kill. It's a 4 versus 2 now. Baceto tries the shotgun from inside Janitor. He's forced to step back towards Monty. He doesn't know where to go right now with, but he's being come at from all angles.
Well, he gets one at least, but he's going to get instantly traded by Nigel, and now leaving Proxy the last one standing. 35 seconds, and you're dealing with a Monty. Lowers his shield, he'll try and tap from behind, he'll get the job done. Redux shuts it down, and I was like, I'm always skeptical when I see the French shield deployed, but it works out this time, and they get the job done. And a lot of that stems from that huge opening pick from Perez. He repels in top square and gets a huge opening for his team. That means when you have that early pick, the Monty gets so much extra value from it. And look at this. These are such key fights winning in favor of MIBR. And you mentioned they were entry heavy in terms of what operator lamp they brought. Well, they needed all that gunfighting skill they brought. So, I mean, I guess it worked.
It did work, and in the early stages of this round, they're dipping similarly back into that sort of a well. You've got the Ash and the Ana again. You've got the Cap as well, who's got 3 speed. Obviously, this could change, and it will do, as the Thatcher is being brought in instead of the Twitch. But it was a very aggressive round from MIBR, and Black Dragons didn't really have an answer for it that time around. So I'm curious to see if Black Dragons will try to meet that aggression head on this time, or whether they're still going to do the same thing as we dip down inside of open area.
I don't think they'll go blow for blow with that level of aggression. I feel like they'll try. What?
Are we going to see Amaru going up through that hatch in open area?
No. No, we
No?
won't. Luke, no, because what they're going to do, they have drones in open area, and they'll set, not in open area, up in CEO, and that's what they'll send. They'll send Luke in to get that control, and he'll immediately be that vocal point of that pressure. So it's a very quick initial clear to try and get top 4, at least I think. I don't think they're going to rely on the execution aspect of the Amaru here, at least from positioning so far. But
You want them to. You're the same as me.
I'm always up for a little bit of my prediction was completely wrong. We've got an absolute bit of pandemonium ahead of us. But again, He's telegraphing this to us. He wants to go in. He's going to get control. He's just waiting for the rest of his team to tell him it's clear, go in. And he'll do that right now. Come on, now.
No. It ain't happening. It ain't happening. Now it's going to happen. There you go. And he goes in and down, and he's inside of square already. And he's going to potentially get in that gunfight with a player over by stock side. Moving into archives now. But as you said, a lot of controls now being gathered in this side of the map. Gets the flank drone set up so that it can keep an eye on it to make sure nobody comes across from square side. But job successfully done so far. And he's got to rotate that he can step right on through to side as well if he needs to.
A lot of control held from archives here. Can deny rotations. The knock inside of tellers as well could be a huge problem. Some loose shots sent towards elevator. Nothing connects. I think now just probing, looking for a way to get into this one. Still so much time to identify the threats, but for Black Dragons, you have a lot of pressure still away from sight, and that could be huge for that potential retake if we see MIBR be able to just walk in and get control.
So now the Thatcher's going to go to work, going to throw it towards that wall. This is where the, the tan can openers will be used. Whip it. Whip
Yes.
it.
Yes.
It's being set up. That's a kill picked up by the castle. But Amari's below. Falls does get one. But Lucan is getting closer and closer to that hatch. Please, I want this execute to happen so bad.
You might want it too much, Gibby, but he's not got a lot of ways in at this stage, actually. Perez gets himself inside of loan office, holds that long angle that's been established, and the direct approach here is coming into a massive problem. You've got these players upstairs, but when you've got to peek in the falls, you need to win your one, and he's going to get aggressive. He's going to try and end the chaos. Right now, Amora is going to go up, but Luke is going to get caught out left in Demino. He's trying to get aggressive, and the Black Dragon's kill feed is going to go all blue. 30 seconds just on the falls, and Live shuts it down. Round 3 goes in favor of the defense of Black Dragons, and well, we were both very much hoping and expecting and ready to enjoy an Amaru up the hatch. We got it. It was a bit anticlimactic, and Falls nearly single-handedly won that round, but it goes the way of the defense. Black Dragons 2-1.
I think Black Dragons enjoyed the Amaru up the hatch more so than anybody else, as they were able to pick up that one for free with the shotgun. That execute might have worked had Falls been able to get that kill as he swung in through, rushing through the breach, but Smoke was able to have an impact on the round. So we go back to basement. The scoreline is 2-1. The sights have been reset. Last time we came here, Black Dragons were able to suffocate the MIBR attack. They got the case down. Black Dragons then managed to win the round out. So this time we go back to the site. You look at the defensive lineup. Solace is going to be brought this time around. And again, much has been made about the impact that Solace has had since she's been brought in, or since been added to competitive play. Let's be real with it. Some of the defenders that have been added recently have had astronomical impacts on the way that some of these sites and some of these rounds have been played.
I mean, the two that obviously we're all going to think about, Azami and Solace, both in play in this matchup. So impactful in basically every team composition. You can find a way to justify them, and especially Solace. The amount of information this operator provides is ridiculous, and it's almost in the same vein of Pulse, but even more versatile, and you can use it in so many more options, and it's a little bit quicker than the cardiac sensor. It gives you so much more area of influence. It's fantastic. And Azami, we've all been in a situation where you want to get through a primary doorway, and Azami goes one by one, keep a barrier, blocks you out, and wastes every second available to a team. So high impact defenders both available for Black Dragons to use on this opening half. Redux will look for that opening pick down towards open area. Couldn't quite connect it on that first attempt. Second bite of the cherry. He'll hello! Bye-bye Ion and bye-bye Nigel. Celebration short-lived as Live's gonna get one. The Redux, their trade towards open area doesn't quite connect, and everything's exploding off across around the map now. One player left in DBNO, finished off by proxy. Perez, that's going to be the victim of that one. And well, with just under 2 minutes left to go, we find ourselves in a 4 versus 2, all in favor of Black Dragons.
Nigel with a beautiful one tap, but it was all for naught. And just the final statement on our conversation about Solace Nazami, it's kind of a feels bad man for poor Grim. Not had the impact at all that maybe people would have hoped, but someday maybe. But Liv will fall back towards site now. They've done the hard job. They've made it a 4 versus 2. 5 Kiba barriers still in the back pocket for Azami as well, so that'll completely shut down anything that could be attempted as they try to push down through these marble stairs. So Lucan steps on down with the Buck going 1 and 2. Going to be cautious, but spots that the door is boarded off. Will unknowingly trace the player off in the distance. Stamp gets one. Lukid gets his kill back the other way. 3 versus 1 now. 2 defenders on site. 1 playing above. Case is cold. And the camera was on him. Lukid, you're an absolutely incredible player. But I think this might be one task too far on this one. 50 seconds to go. Prone player inside gold.
He's down player, actually. So he's going to be in a 2 versus 1. So he's going to get that one finished off. You know what, Gibby? Normally in these situations, I always bill it as against the odds. I think he's got a good chance. The player on the hatch will prove to be the most difficult puzzle to solve. But if he can recover the case, he spots the head, but he gets himself deep inside of sight. He can force out the plant, and that's exactly what he'll do. A winnable situation, but the sound cue will get one to drop in the hatch, and he's very exposed in the middle of the hallway. He'll wait, he'll bait, try to force a reload. But Luke gets slower on the draw, and the second round in a row goes for Black Dragons.
Pros don't reload anymore. Not in scenarios like that. You're going to use every single bullet in that mag unless you're 100% sure. And I think that's one of the things that I like about that change, the update to the reload system, where you keep the 1 bullet inside the chamber. Everything else is essentially...
Oh my goodness, look at that!
It was filth. It was absolute filth. And honestly, he should wash his hands after that one.
Oh man, that... Wash the mouse, wash the keyboard, man. What a shot that was. Goodness. Goodness me. Unfortunately, gets himself instantly traded the moment he lands it. However, he got that. And MIBR have called your tactical timeout, brought to you by Intero at this point.
Intero. This is the only region you can say it, though. This is the only region where...
I despise you pointed that out to me. Because I cannot read the top bar, that top orange bar, without seeing Parker's name.
He has casted multiple SI finals. He's been involved in so many of the most memorable times inside of Siege history. And he also brings you the timeouts in Brazil. Is there anything that man can't do?
Gives good hugs.
He does.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Great hair.
Yeah. I don't know where you want to go with this conversation, Gibby.
Intero good. That will leave Intero good.
Oh, it doesn't take long. It's 3 games of bank in a row, by the way. 3. I love it. At the same time, wouldn't mind a bit of Oregon.
Bit of Oregon, that a bit of you today.
Oh, you know me. Listen, if we could choose what maps we queued in Siege, I'd queue exclusively Oregon, Clubhouse, and we'll maybe dabble with a bit of Chalet. I'm really boring.
Chalet's fun though. Chalet's fun. Bank is a fun map too. Like, it is a fun map to watch. 3 times in a row. It's it can make, you know, if it was a case where you were watching this and you went away and you came back, you're like, is this a still game? Is this... Some people might come back from a break and think that based on the scoreline here could still be the NIP game, but that one ended a long time ago.
Some very different stories here, Gibby. We've seen a 14-round overtime and a 7-0. So we've seen like nearly the furthest you can go in a game and nearly the shortest you can go on this map today. Variety is the spice of life, at least in terms of results. Unfortunately, we don't get that from maps. Helmet charge thrown out by MIBR to try and get themselves through that wall. Of course, they had just taken a tactical timeout before this round. So can they amend some mistakes they've been making, or can they find a little bit of extra pressure to really try and collapse on and get these rounds? Because they don't want to let Black Dragons get themselves a potential where they're looking at a 4-1-5 or 4 or 5 rounds.
It's the Twister timeout. This is what we call it. You get the timeout nice and early. Nigel gets the opening pick, but it allows you to have an impact on the game nice and early. Not only that, LFO as a team will like to see MIBR taking the timeout there too, because it shows that MIBR really wants to win this game. Now, you look at the setup. Azami has created a real maze inside of sight, something that needs to be worked out here. Reduct has managed to get through the wall with that Ossa shield as well, though, which puts a little bit more pressure on these players back inside of sight, and Falls is able to get that one, making it a 5v3. So Stamp has to get a little bit more aggressive here as he pushes in towards Lounge. Looks through that rotate again, but there's nobody peering or leering through those windows. They're all played back. His position has been revealed. And Legion still playing down on the ground floor with those impacts, but everything is set up nicely for MIBR when they try to get this execute played off.
Perez holds 3 Candelas, the first of which gets sent out and deployed, but Stemp won't be phased or bothered by that one. He'll sit comfortable in his lane. His glance glasses will keep him protected from those flashes. Another smoke canister tossed out. I believe that's the final one available, but Redux will just walk in backwards and plant behind the Osa shield. The smoke plume isn't enough to stop the plant, and now all these window positions are held, making this post plant an absolute nightmare. 30 seconds till we go critical on impact toss. That will clear the Osa shield. That's one of the many problems now dealt with, but Redux finds one on the Basido, and now things are going to be a problem. As, oh, what a shot by Stemp. And will that be enough to get a cascade? Probably not, as the window's still locked in. Falls gets one more, trades off that ward, and leaving us in a 4 versus 1. Perez will close that one out. Round 5 goes for MIBR. And we are looking at a situation we can go level once again at the half here on Bank.
Okay, MIBR bounce back from the tactical timeout and win their round, and it's one of the reasons why we like seeing the tac timeouts coming out early. It's my pet hate is a team using their tac timeout. I've ran out of names. I've got so many. No, honestly though, I hate it when teams use it whenever they're 6-1 down or 5-2 down or 5-1 down. It's like, why now? Why try to change things now when it's almost too late? MIBR, the coach has already noticed something that he wants to change. So he was like, guys, yes, I know this game really doesn't mean that much for us in the grand scheme of things, but I'm a competitor. I want to win. You're doing this wrong. Let's talk about it. Let's fix it. And let's shut down Black Dragons.
Not only, like, okay, so in terms of, like, for MIBR, this is seeding. They are locked in top 3 no matter what. Just depends who they face on the other side of the bracket for this result. You always, as a competitor, want to win. It's one of the most obvious statements I'll ever say, but they're not going into this game really thinking about that we'll save this, do that. No, they want to win. They want to lock it in. They're not going to take any risks, and I think a good call from that timeout. And I mean, we call them twister timeouts. I think teams in BR are pretty used to it because we used to coach over here. He's really impacted those earlier timeouts, and I think it's a very, very good way to have that work out for teams. You can make changes earlier in a matchup and not kind of hemorrhage away that many rounds.
I think one of the things about a good coach, though, is being able to do it in multiple teams. And Twister has attended every single SI with multiple different teams. His longevity has been great, and I know that there's a lot of players and fans inside this region who are going to miss him. You know, they kind of wish that Twister was back in, but he's off trying to find success in EU. And arguably, he's done a great job. Secret, in their first stint with Twister as a coach, managed to attend SI. But we're talking about the past here. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the present. It's 3-2 to Black Dragons against MIBR. This is the last round before the side swap. Can MIBR level the sides at 3-3, or will Black Dragons take a 4-2 split?
Been attended a few moments in this. C4 tossed out. I think just trying to set that one up in coordination. The Valkyrie, or maybe on Live's Yokai drones. No direct information for it. Just waiting for that opportunity to try and get that to detonate to get a freebie. Drone sent down by Nigel. Look for it. Spots the player instead of elevator. If that's hatches open, which you'll have a super shorty, he'll be able to do that. He'll be able to retreat down. And I think the repositioning of that drone is a very smart read. At least it would have been, in my opinion. If you put that on the main stairs that way, he would have been able to read if Castle dropped down. If you hear that hatch crack open, and he'll tuck himself in that corner for the time. He can just waste time. Every second that they burn away is huge. And they're running out of those just around a minute and change to work within this round.
So Falls playing the verticality now with Ying. They've still got that castle barricade up in place, and Ace still has some utility use, so he's going to begin opening that quad wall. Ideally, you want to remove that castle, though, to remove some of the linearity of this push, as Nigel will hold those main stairs. Marble as he waits to see if any defenders look to retake top floor, but it ain't going to happen just yet. There's one of those castles removed, so now you can put pressure on the player who used to be on elevator, but he's now dropped below, and he's going to go a hunting. Pat takes a little bit of damage there. Ion's in position. There's the kill. Falls is going to take him down, and he's going to immediately begin putting that case down directly below the hatch. Echo is there. Echo can stop this, but he doesn't, but it is going to be the TCSG that shuts down that plant. But there's a player DBNO here for Black Dragons as well. It's a 3v4. Nigel picks up as one. Another DBNO. And Basetto is the last man standing. Case going down. Nigel within the back pocket. Basetto, oh no. That's not what the doctor ordered. That is. But Perez closes it out. And MIBR level the sides at 3 rounds apiece.
We have seen almost every type of game of Siege on Bank today. We've had 14 rounds, we've had 7 rounds. Where are we going to sit with this one? 3-3 at the split. Both these teams can't really find significant daylight between each other. This could be a very, very close endeavor indeed.
MIBR still, for LFO, I think, need to win this in regulation, because LFO have 4 points, Black Dragons have 4. So if this goes to overtime, Black Dragons are guaranteed at a minimum 5 points, which would secure them 3rd place inside of this group. So, things are getting tense, because a 3-3 half is, to me, the new 4-2. It's that half where you think, oh, this one could very easily end up going to overtime. We've seen it here before. You know what we haven't seen today? And Bank, a 7-5. 7-5.
So, okay, so so what you're saying is we'll go from a super long overtime game to a super short game with a 7-0 to a just normal regulation 7-5?
Yeah.
Cover all bases?
You happy with that?
I mean, I guess, you know.
Only if your team wins, though.
Well, listen, if it's an MIBR 7-5, absolutely. Absolutely, because, listen, my predictions have been a little bit off today. I tried to throw a wrench in the works, go like, oh, I'll go for the underdogs, and it hasn't quite worked.
It didn't work. But look, there's still loads. Hopefully there's loads more days for us to cast, for us to put predictions in. As long as people don't hate us. And that's the main thing. So, moving into this next round. It is the first round on attack for Black Dragons. You always like to moniker it as the most important round of a game, as that side swap does occur. There's the opening pick, but it's immediately traded back. So nothing ventured, nothing gained between the two sides. It's still a 4 versus 4. Castle still has 1 barricade left in his pocket, though, but are you expecting maybe some late round shenanigans, or just can't really think of any way to put it? Not really safe to put it down anywhere right now.
I highly doubt we'll see a late addition of a castle barrier around the map, but you know, listen, I'm never opposed to seeing some new technology in live deployment. Just the early stage of this round still, opening picks have been traded out 4 versus 4. An Astronautics, pretty fair trade-off in my humble opinion. Both serve that entry role, both traded away early. Information getting gathered by the marble stairs. Yana clone sent in, but the Echo looks like aggressive! This could be a huge blunder, but he escapes with his life in tow. Stem very nearly was able to collect that one. Both sides just so close to that one. Time, though, begins to drain away. MIBR will be very, very keen to waste every second they can.
So Ion still playing inside of Archives will begin droning things out. We'll realize that there's a Vigil pretty close by as he gets that signal. So Vigil playing somewhere down around basement. Stemp begins pushing down main stairs as well, and he gets rid of one of those Echoes and gets the information that the hatch is open, but Lukid shuts down Ion inside Archives. It's a 3 versus 4 now. He gets another try to get another pick for himself. Misses the opportunity this time around. Perez gets one onto live, though it's now a 2 versus 4. Lukid gets peeked by Stemp. Stemp wins. He gets a second one on the push, and now it's a chance for Black Dragons to maybe put some pressure on the site. The case has dropped down towards the server side. This is where the smoke canisters will begin to pop. 1 more left to go, so that's another 10 seconds that can be reduced from the time inside of this round. Balls dips back in towards red. Reduct playing inside Echo spot. It's right there. There's the head. He can't
shoot it, Gibby. It's only his uniform. It won't do damage. He'll have to get his teammate to do it. It's going to come down to 1 versus 1. Stemp needs to drop. He needs to be a hero. He'll swing wide, but falls with the shotgun. Gets it done. I know that frustration of the smoke player. You'll see him plump, but that's just his backpack. It will do no damage. You must find another way. They get the job done with coverage. Comes down to that final 1 versus 1. Oh my!
Where does Thermite rate in the worst backpacks in Siege for to look at? Maestro's definitely the worst.
Maestro's the worst. Maestro's the worst because like that has to be a Maestro. Nope. Finally, you get the shot to land. But that is one of the most like. It's great that the uniforms and hitboxes are separate entities because it makes everything very much more fair. But it's like you look at it going, that's a backpack. Come on, where can I get my shots to land and find out? But very chaotic round. That double piece that landed up, and I believe it was the yawn of that previous round that was Stemp who found it. Perez tried to swing wide to get that trade, gets read into perfectly, and that huge 2K opened and cracked that round wide open. It came down to that final 20 seconds. You got a Yokai drone and 3 smoke canisters. You can surely wind that out, and they were able to do it. But very, very narrow margin get that done. Came down to 1v1, and, well, trust in that SAS shotgun was enough to get that job done.
So 3 minutes inside this round. We've just stepped inside the action phase, and looking at that defensive lineup again, you've got the Capcan, so you got to make sure to watch everything you move. You've got Azami in there to shut it down. We just spoke about the backpack. I think we summoned him. I think we've summoned Maestro into this game. But I have a question.
Sent deep. Okay, you said you had a question. What was
as
it?
a purist, as a siege fan.
Hold up. I'm sorry.
How excited?
No. I'm not a Siege purist by any stretch of the imagination.
No,
My favorite team's CAG.
Yeah, but my point is, seeing Maestro being deployed in open area on bank brings back some big memories, doesn't it? It's a bit of Siege history.
Oh, of course, a little bit of hot and cold. Never argue with that one.
Well, no Perez.
Gets the vault. He gets the vault just in time. I mean, listen, Maestro is going to be one of those rare operators. It's not so common. Well, it's like a sub 20% hit rate.
Oh no.
Yes, well, I say it. Not really a nade, but it's an NA Candela. Best, as well.
Well, the one way to nerf Ying at the minute is to get rid of one of those Candelas. So it was nice of Black Dragons to do that for MIBR.
Beautiful entry.
We saw that yesterday. We saw that same entry happen yesterday, but it was on the other side. Nigel the Gunfight Perez takes down Step. It's a 4v3 whip it.
3 versus 3 now. Ion's going to get one back on the Perez, and it's going to be a very frantic moment. He finds a second one. Luke it overexposes himself for a brief moment. And MIBR are reduced to 2. Now, you actually, Lives left in DBNO. I wonder if he managed to stumble himself into a Capcan trap. So the quest to get... He did! So he walks straight into a Capcan trap, now going to be on 20 HP, and a few vital seconds were wasted, and those moments have allowed Reduct to creep back inside of Tellers. This could be massive. He has a lot of freedom, but the player in lobby might be able to shut this down. The red pings are there, and he pops up. You need to win this fight! Narrow margins. Damage done to either side, but look at the HP of Black Dragons. Every single member a single round away from getting shut down and sent to the grave. 40 seconds. And now, MIBR, can you hold the line? All these crossfires are absolutely perfect. Candela's only one available, and Live will send that in shortly. He just has. Nigel full flash, and they'll try and drop. The information is good. Live will get one. DBNO of Ion. This is very winnable. They rotate around. He knows Printer's going to be a vocal point, and he catches it. Will you stick the plant? Yes, he does. Black Dragons claim another round.
And that was touch and go. Every single player left standing there on the side of Black Dragons was one shot away from death. But they managed to pull the round back anyway. The sides are level at 4 rounds apiece as they just take turns throwing heavyweight punches back and forward. Will one of these sides manage to start to extend that lead if they get it? But that was a big round again. I thought for a second when Reduct got that one that the round was MIBR's, but no, Black Dragons kept their composure.
And once again, we draw level. Neither side can find daylight. Blow for blow, punch for punch. They cannot find distance in this game. I've got a feeling, Gibby, all 12 rounds might just be needed once again to separate a side here on Bank. Maybe even more.
It's the last day of the regular season. As a caster, I'd love this to...
Why not?
Exactly.
Give us a wee treat.
I'd love this to go all the way to overtime, but I know LFO don't want it to happen, so realistically, you'd like either Black Dragons or MIBR to win this in regulation for the, the likes of LFO, so that they don't get their heart broken and then still have to watch more.
You just gotta feel it. You gotta feel for LFO right now. Sitting in the wings, watching this game play out, all around them, knowing that their fate is no longer in their hands. Redux, aggressive inside of Electrical. Oh no, he spots a drone. He'll go wide, but will it be enough time? It's gonna be a nasty one. Will he escape with his life? He does. Oh my. A gamble and a half, but he's able to check out and get back to life. Whoa, a scary one.
I don't know what to say. That was a close one right there. It's a good thing Solace has impacts. Because if there was no impact there, Solace was a goner. So, 2 minutes gone on the round. That was the first real threat of action that we've had so far. And now we'll see Black Dragons get to work. So they're going to open up that Canto wall. That'll give them the opportunity to stop any rotates that go from Canto or in through stock, which forces the defenders to maybe stick into place or make a brave move. And you can see the exact case in point. Facero from this position now can see so many things, and he's got such a long line of sight, but the player now inside of Office will be a bit of a problem.
They'll need to clear it. Vocal point they'll need to work with. No early engagements in the second half really arriving. Redux tried to get one to work out. Didn't quite land his way. Black Dragons a little bit slower on their entry game compared to that what we saw of MIBR. Opening pick goes to Redux. Finally gets his man of Ion. He'll retreat the site. Perez finds a second one. Zeto next to fall. A trade will finally arrive and it will be live from the live rappel. Minute left to work with. Man advantage sits with MIBR. Redux will look to try and find another one, but the window pressure is huge. Can they deal with it?
Redux needs to win this one in this position. There's a player inside lobby. They'll probably get a little bit closer, start pushing into sight because there's only 46 seconds left to go. So whenever Step begins to climb those stairs or gives himself that line of sight, you'll see the gunfight live. Vaults on, and the Kiba barrier is actually working in Live's favor, but it forces him into that peak where the players in Janitor smoke comes out, but there's the kill on the Lucan. Redux now going for the flank. He needs to be careful, spots him out. There's the kill. It's a 1v3. Last player comes around Banana, and Redux gets taken down by Live. It's now a 1 versus 2. And can Live pull this one off? No, he can't. Nigel is there again. Of all the player names that I thought that I would get to say when I found out about Casimir, Nigel's not the one that comes to mind as a Brazilian flair player, is it?
I mean, certainly playing a fantastic game. We saw him yesterday, how good he was as well. Able to find those results. So he's got the flair at least inside of the server. MIBR get themselves that 1 round advantage. They're 1 round away from getting themselves that match point advantage. Black Dragons, the biggest thing that I'm looking at right now from them is their entry game. It is very, 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 very slow. Just a little update for everyone on how this stands in terms of the overall of this group. If Black Dragons get a regulation win, they will get themselves that victory. They go to second in the standings. MIBR will move to third. If there's an overtime or MIBR get the victory, it's going to be LFO who sneak in for third.
So now MIBR with that 5-4 lead. They can win this one and put themselves on match point. It'll be a tense few minutes for the side of LFO. Black Dragons win this next round, and we get to see every single round in regulation, which is, I said we might see a 7-5. Part of me, by watching this game, thinks that overtime is on the cards, very much so at this point. But Black Dragons, you feel like this is one of those must-win rounds for them.
Truly, truly is. You never really want to let your opposition beat you to that finish line. Not finish line, but the pseudo finish line of match point advantage. It's such a position to hold over your rivals. Huge fight. Ion takes a beating. Challenge the DMR of Aruni and pay the price at HP. Huge early engagement. No kill confirmation, but damage done. Fink is not relevant in our meta anymore, so that's going to be permanent.
Yes, so the question is, though, what can Ion still do? You can still have an impact in the round, even if you only have 1 HP. But you got to hit your shots. You got to still work. You've still got 2 drones in the back pocket. Ion's not used any of those Twitch drones yet inside the round. And Twitch on a site like this one can have an impact. You can use it to get rid of utility. But will it be used? Stamp's still playing on me, and Ion's going to begin droning. So will Ying whip it. Minute and 44 to go left on the clock, and Black Dragon's just stalling out just a little bit.
They need to find the opening engagement within the next, I would say 40 seconds, but maybe even sooner. They're not going to be able to really get success. MIBR aren't going to give that to them. And again, I'll repeat, I'll sound like a broken record. The tempo, the pace right now of Black Dragons is really struggling. And they need to find that extra bit of pressure. And They're going to try and make an execution work. The secondary hard breach will crack open this hatch to get some access into CC. They've got a lot of Candelo's force still to work with, and they can make an execution stick. The Twitch drones are going to be very key. They need to get those in pretty quickly to get rid of those Goyo canisters so they can try and make this execution work, at least in a timely fashion.
There's the Thatcher onto the stairs to try and get rid of any utility that's in and around blue. Steps in the open area and gets on the camera again. There's the first kill, though. Reduct is going to take down one in blue. And blue, he re-peeks again. He's got the player below, a player above. Shotgun in hand, gets his one, but he's traded back the other way. Baceto taking him down. Perez takes down Stemp. It's a 4v2 with 40 seconds to go. And it doesn't look like things are going to calm down anytime soon.
Thermite charge used on just the remnants of that soft wall will gain them access. It doesn't get denied, it doesn't. So now they can try and work a plan. But look at the time, top of your screen. 24 seconds, and Nigel the DMR from range. And that just crushes the hopes and dreams. The C4 goes deep, but doesn't arrive. And Thermite won't last long. Perez swings wide and gets the headshot of the SMG-11. MIBR 1 round away from locking it out and getting victory and sending LFO to the playoffs.
This is it, Black Dragons. What do you have in the tank? Is it full? Is it empty? Are you running on fumes? You win this round, you got to dip back into that tank again to win the one after it as well. Because MIBR have 2 attempts now at match point. The thing is, too, you look at the rotations of maps. When you get in this position on 6-4, you're going to get at least 1 attempt at one of your favorite sites on bank. Black Dragons use the Intero time out. Can one of the voices of Siege inspire a comeback?
You've now got that. That's like a little worm in my brain now. Every time I see a timeout in Portuguese, it's always going to be that. How have you done this to me? But this is a critical moment now. I think this is a little bit late to have called it. I think there was issues with how Black Dragons were playing that need to be fixed a little bit sooner. But better late than never, I suppose. They've got that little breather, that little chance to calm down, recollect themselves, and figure out what they need to do. But open area will be the site of choice. And you've got to feel that they need to be a little bit more efficient on getting that entry and that pressure and that opening upstairs before anything else.
So, this is it. Match point. The attack lineup is not set until there's 5 seconds left in the prep phase. At the moment, they've already made one change. They've got rid of the Ash, they've got rid of the Buck. They've switched it out for Iana and Ying. Ying, a very execute-heavy operator. Probably what we're going to see here is them taking control of top floor. They'll drop those Candelas down through that hatch and drop through stock like what we saw attempted a little bit earlier on inside of this game. But you need to whittle down MIBR because you can't make that execute happen if MIBR have 5 or 4 players up. You need to get into a 5 versus 3, a 4 versus 3. You need the numbers in your favor because you need everybody in position to trade their way to victory.
The opening engagement of this round could be telling of how this game will unfurl. A yokai drone in a fantastic position, mounted up on the window inside of the lobby, and it will be a guidance to Lukin, but it won't work. They're ready for it. It would have been a beautiful sight if it connected, but Black Dragons take a gift. That will be Lukin's life.
Cameraman did not like that at all. He's watching at home going, why do you bring out the technology now? Why play with their emotions at this point? MIBR went for the risk, but they got their hand bitten when they put it into that jar. So, Black Dragons now, you've got the numbers in your favor. That was one of the things in this equation we had to talk about. Reduct jumps out as well, but another kill is going to be found on the player who vaults out. Perez now coming under fire as well. He's going to get taken out. It's a 5v2. And MIBR are just giving Black Dragons opportunities to pick up kills. Falls now is going to step in the lobby. Why is Maestro getting involved in this mix? He's fallen way back from sight. And now we might see some normality. Now Nigel is going to get close by as well. But the site is completely free for the taking for Black Dragons.
No one on site. They've got the Evil Eyes to work with. They'll have information. But they've only got 2 bodies to make this work. So much time remaining for Black Dragons. They can take every second available to find out where these final 2 threats remain. But what an opening that was. 1 by 1. The Nook's going to get 1 more. the cusp of flawless round. Set of Candelas go in, but no one's home. No one blinded. Vert will get opened up. The drones will detect this position. The Maestro, you might have 81 rounds of pain ready in your LMG, but a nade might shut you down. A flawless round by Live. And Gibby, once again on bank, all 12 rounds needed to separate these two sides. End of regulation is calling. Will MIBR get it done right here, right now? Or will it be one more overtime here on bank? You know what? I'm happy either way.
And the scary thing about it is, MIBR gave Black Dragons that round. It's as simple as that. They tried the vault out the windows twice. They were ready for it. Yes, the first one was enabled by the fact that there was an echo with that line of sight. But then you get a player trapped. Solace goes for the peek from the lobby as well. Solace gets taken down. Then Maestro goes over to that side of the map. Black Dragons couldn't believe their luck. Now they find themselves in a situation where they are playing for their lives. They win this round right here, right now. They're guaranteed through to the knockouts. LFO are done. MIBR. Are you going to send Black Dragons home? Or are you going to get taken down and allow... Sorry, are you going to send Black Dragons home? Or are you going to let Black Dragons in and send LFO back to the drawing board as they would go to LCQs?
If you're a fan of LFO, Cameraman's new project, a legend of the BR space, you'll be sitting on the edge of your seat in this one. The next 2 minutes decide the future of that side in stage 1. Final day of groups. Final game of the day. And it comes down to this. Would you ask for any more tension? Would you want any more drama? This is why we love this game.
And no mental strats, no mental tech being deployed by Black Dragons here. They know how important this round is. They're going to play this by the book. But is the book going to be the correct guide to a victory? MIBR, they're going to play the game that MIBR play, which is they do like to get front facing. They do like to compete with the teams that they're playing somewhere near their points of entry. Nigel's position here in stock is a really important one for this defense. You lose Nigel, you lose the player and janitor essentially at that point as well. Solace has been droned out, and this could be big. Ion's going to wrap up as well as he gets droned in. Replaces, moves back. I thought for a second we would have seen a sort of a pinch out on the player in open area, but I think Stemp is going to decide to take lobby here instead, and he's going to get droned in too potentially.
Selma charges detonate in the distance. Getting to set up pressure towards Marble Stairs. Lots of utility for Black Dragons to work with. Detonation goes off in the distance, unsure of its source, but the Solace down below in basement is causing so many issues. That's not the site, it's upstairs you gotta deal with. They'll begin to put pressure on windows, but look at the top of your screen. Minute 10, and there's no opening pick, no significant map control, but there's that pick. Nigel's first to fall. This could unravel this round right here, right now.
Stock control has been lost now. Live gets himself on the window with the Zofia, the perfect counter. One of the perfect counters to the Azami. Ion drops the nade on top of Falls, and there's Perez to pull one back. Hopes for LFO lie on MIBR now if they can pull this one out. Reduct still playing below. Got rid of the flank drone, but Lucat is playing tight on site. He is playing specifically to stop this case from going down. There could be a bit of action here as Ion steps in. Perez takes a bit of a beating, but he takes down Live. Perez gets another. Stemp takes him back on the refrag. It's a 2 versus 2. One player on site. Stemp gets the kill. And now Reduct steps back in towards Janitor. 20 seconds left on the clock. Black Dragons need to take down Reduct and get this case down if they want any chance. There's the peak, and there you have it. Black Dragons, they are going through to the playoffs. LFO go to LCQs. The game is not over, but the group is.
Oh, you must feel a little bit in your heart for LFO. This result no longer in their hands. It is locked in and done. Black Dragons will go to the top 3, meaning LFO will have to face the music in LCQ if they want a chance to make it to the Copenhagen Major. Wow. Wow, that's everything locked in for BR. But we've still got an overtime to get over with, Gibby.
It's still... For both these sides now, they're locked in. This is the way that
It's a weird, well, the tension's now gone a little bit in this. Just a little bit.
Get a bit of fun now. These teams can have a little bit of fun from this point on, because MIBR are guaranteed at least 1 point. That means that there's no way the Black Dragons can catch them from this point as well. So, who's going to have a little bit of fun or have an impact here on overtime to maybe seal away the final MVP of the regular season? Because that's still to be decided by the two men on the desk, Jacob and CDAPS.
Oh my goodness. That's it. That's the groups for stage 1 locked in and done, Gibby. And it feels so weird because we've got an overtime to watch between two teams that are going to push it to the absolute limit. Would you want it to go any other way? Last day of the groups. Absolute spectacle. So, can Black Dragons continue to build on that momentum? They just locked themselves in. They're one step closer to that trip to Copenhagen. Can they build upon that to send and finish off MIBR and get their 2 points in this? Stemp will be the first into the building. Looks to get aggressive. Good information on Marble Stairs, and he's going to get the opening. Will look to try and read in that potential trade. He'll find another one. No, he gets traded off, and Perez will shut him down. 4 versus 4 level on the player count, and he'll retreat back towards open area.
Putting down those Capcan devices now as well to maybe catch out some of those attackers as they look to hunt them down. It's not a bad idea. Retreat, put down the Capcan because you think somebody might be on the hunt. And now Lookit will get on the Solace again. Didn't have the impact in that last round that Solace would have wanted to have had. But look, spots the player on the spots all the phones in the back pocket as they go off. And Ion will get on the drone now as well and should spot Lookit, who is playing in this position. And he does. So you know there's a player in archives, and oh, so close. Ion was so close to getting that kill onto Lookit.
So much damage done by the DMR. Creep instead of archives now. Candela's sing off in the distance. The site still down below. And Lookit yet to retreat. Has the option, but he'll try and hold on as long as he can to be that final backstab, the last thorn in their side. An angle set up by Perez, a nasty deep one as well, but Lookit has dropped back now. Decides to relay what information he can on that Solace gadget. It gives you so much advance and so much information on where this push will arrive. Yokai drones redeployed, replaced, and they'll form up on that front line towards servers, but no one's there just yet. And I think eventually they'll arrive there, but 50 seconds, they might be just a little bit late to the dance.
45 seconds left now as time ticks off. The Candela is still in the back pocket as Ying will look to just light up the site in just a few seconds. So send the first one down red. That'll make it very difficult for the player in red to stop the initial part of this push as he moves on towards Hatch. There is the Echo drone gone now as well. Thermite will begin opening up that wall, and all the places are being put in place. That smoke will dissipate in just a few seconds. The second one thrown. Smoke should be able to choke this one out with time. So the push needs to come in from Ying now to get that kill. There's the stun. Live takes down Reduct. 4 versus 3 now. But this toxic babes have been thrown. 7-6-5. Case is going down inside the smoke.
Doorway.
I like it.
He doesn't know. Boss has no idea how close he was to saving the round. The case goes down and Lukin can't get it done. Silence! Silence on the virtual casting booth of that one. Millimeters away. They were basically shoulder to shoulder in the smoke and didn't hear that case go down. Black Dragons on overtime match point. What a round from them. And I really love the information they used. Their drone network was so superb. They knew exactly where those yokai drones were, exactly how to deny them, and they weren't pressured. They didn't panic. They stayed composed. They had around 10 seconds left to go. They knew they had to go deep to make that execution work, and it worked absolutely perfectly. They'll move to the defense. They'll pick the basement, and this is it. Can they get this done on round 14, or is that mystical, that coveted final 15th round calling us?
So here's the question I pose to you now, Whippet, as we've seen from these sides, and this is, of course, match point now for Black Dragons. Which of these sides do you think look best equipped going into those playoffs?
Oh, don't do this to me. I don't know. don't know. It's so hard, man. I think, right. I personally think MIBR have been a little bit more clinical than Black Dragons in this matchup so far. It's not going to be easy on the other side of the bracket either way for either of these teams. I believe they're waiting for FaZe and Lost One respectively. So it's going to be a difficult one. I think, I don't know, Black Dragons have just been a little bit slow on that offense. Or for these overtime rounds in the last use of regulation, they're very slow. That could be punishing them later on in those playoffs. MIBR now on that offense will look to get themselves in a good position early. Look for those entryways, look for those openings. Can they get it done here? Can they force max OT?
Well, that is the question posed to MIBR. Both these sides having 50% success on this map on their attacks and their defenses. So MIBR, all is in your court. Black Dragons just need to hold back this push if they want to get the win. The lineup is set, and there's the Kiba barriers just being the nuisance that they always tend to be. You're holding the angled open area, and all of a sudden, the window is closed. Nigel just timing, still looking towards elevator. Don't know. I think he does know that the player's that close, but the barbed wire is the problem. He steps to that barbed wire, that player in elevator is going to swing.
A dance with the devil. They know the stalemate that they've set up in this situation. He might just have to take the gunfight and hope best he can do is win it. Minute 30. And Black Dragons will just be keen and intent to waste every second they can. Cautious to the player down below in the lower stage of those stairs. Balls being cautious of blue as well. MIBR look to be slowing down, and they know that player's dropped. So they know they can take that initial area and that initial bit of control, and that gives them an extra bit of comfort. Ball's a little bit alone here. Will open up that hatch, and well, he was a little bit worried about a swing. It won't arrive. 60 seconds remain now in this round.
60 seconds to go. Thatcher can be used to maybe clear some utility, but that's going to be the pop of the go-yo to just delay the push a little bit longer. And now you focus on maybe a player dropping through the hatch. The audio cue should be enough. So Lucan will send the drone down, feed the information that the player is still playing inside of blue. So the rest of the server, though, completely clear. 40 seconds to go. MIBR being stalled out now by this Black Dragons attack, and here comes the push.
Smokes go out, Luca with the opening pick, and this could be a massive opening, but it's going to be a flurry of kills either way in the next few seconds. Candelas go out to try and force Black Dragons back to the further lines. Smokes, though, will choke this out. Two still available with only 20 seconds. Well within the realms of possibility. The Magic getting on the Candela, shot out by Ion. He can't cross, think the fire will choke him out, but the C4 might be perfect. Will it arrive? It does, and it finds two. 7 seconds. Perez gets one, Nigel another one, but the case is cold. Redux will try and stick it, but 000 is dawning. The cover needs to be perfect, and it won't be there at all. It's Redux all alone, and they'll get the knife for good measure. Black Dragons claim victory on round 14 of overtime, and they've got their ticket to playoffs already punched and booked.
Well, it was simple for Black Dragons. Get the winner, get to overtime. How's about both? They get the 2 points and secure their way into the playoffs. And whip it. I lost one prediction today on an earlier game, but I'm 2-0 against you. I'll take that.
That's all you care about. You only care about the head-to-head and predictions against me, but alas, I'd be the same in that one. Black Dragons take the overtime victory, 8-6 to get themselves those 2 points. Confirms them in the playoffs. It sends LFO home. Commiserations to that side. They'll have to chance their luck instead of LCQ, but that is our entire group stage finished. That was the last matchup, and every team going to the next stage is locked in and ready.
And it is going to be a fun one. Those teams going to the next round are going to have a massive impact. Of course, for the 2 teams that were top seeded, they'll be pretty happy. But look, we're talking too much in the future. We're taking the other guys' jobs. We're going to jump into a break. And I'm sure that at that point, Jacob and CDAPS will take you through everything that today's games meant.
If MIBR were the bouncers at the entrance to the club, then I think Black Dragons showed him the right keycard or the right secret password, handshake, whatever it took to actually gain access, because all they required was going to overtime. They needed the one round to push themselves above LFO in the Group A standings, and they did it against an MIBR team that, frankly, probably should have had this thing won by like a round 11 or 12. They are now both heading to playoffs.
MIBR, they have locked in that 2 seed, so they get the slightly easier matchup as opposed to Black Dragons having to play FaZe Clan. We'll get into that a little bit more later on, but overall with this match, Black Dragons did impress.
They did. And then MIBR on match point decide, let's get a little bit frisky. Let's try a run out or two. Let's see how disruptive we can get on a CEO defense this round in particular right here, where it felt like if it wasn't Luka dying, then it was Reduck, it was Nigel, it was too many bodies falling by the wayside too quickly before creating enough of an impact to stall Black Dragon's attacks. And then in overtime, that same trend continued. Same thing for the swap on defense in the last round, and Stemp closed out this game for Black Dragons. Great way for a rookie to be making his debut, and it was oh so close. Perez almost got his revenge victory over his old team.
I will say, I said it in the pre-show, Perez was going to bounce back. He did. He almost carried MIBR over the finish line, but it was just a little too late with his heroics. Sure, MIBR, they lock in the higher seed, but for the side of Black Dragons, they also came out swinging, winning the kills by quite a bit, staying even on entry even though they've struggled. And that improvement in the ratings is a positive trend for this team that has seemingly continued to hit their stride and will be hitting full form come playoffs.
Rez would have probably gotten MVP honors in this game if they had managed to close it out. I'd say it pretty firmly goes to a player on the opposite side, and we'll reveal who that is in a second. Black Dragons now finish out this stage at 1-1-1-1. They had only the hole for the overtime win still left, and then MIBR for themselves finish out at 2-0-1-1, still finishing with enough points to make sure they lock that second seed in. Black Dragons, man, this one has to feel really good at the end of the stage, even if it was a whirlwind to finally get to that point.
Yeah, especially because everybody played well. Even you see Patoxy at 10 and 11. He was still dominant on the entry. He was improving as well with the rest of the roster and getting involved like every single way. Basetto had a kind of a sneaky solid game even on the supporting roles that he's been relatively quiet, still got the one singular plant for Black Dragons down, and overall looked dang good.
Let's talk about MVP performances though, because it's a guy that you've made comparisons to Fantasy in the past. You can probably attest to it now after having seen him play through 4 games. Has Stemp lived up to that same level of hype?
He's getting pretty dang close, and when we have a toxic take saying, is Fantasy the best player in the world? Oh my gosh, ha ha ha, shout out to Reddit. But I still think Stemp is slightly in the shadow of Fantasy, but not by much. In a rookie performance, he's shown tremendous upside, especially with an improving Black Dragons roster.
So, now the group stage is done. We've handed out final MVP honors. We've run through the last of the stats. We are now done with best of ones. Now we move to best of threes. We start that process next week on Friday, and if you're curious about what the bracket looks like, we don't have to look at standings graphics anymore. We now have a fully fledged playoff bracket to decide 3 teams that will go to Copenhagen, 2 of which will go through phase 2, 1 of which will go through phase 1. MIBR will face Los 1, the 2 seed from Group A, and the 3 seed from Group B. FaZe Clan will face Black Dragons, the 2 and 3 seeds from the inverse of those 2 groups, facing Liquid and W7M, respectively. The quarterfinals will happen on Friday, the semifinals on Saturday, and the 3rd place match and the grand final will happen on Sunday.
I'm excited. Not only do we see an absolutely stacked up roster of teams all hitting form at the right time, meaning that this is going to be a throw up, potentially a complete toss up, if you will. We also get BO3s back, and that always makes me happy because anything can happen in BO1s. Sometimes a team can just be having a hot day. Another team can just be not waking up feeling right. But in a BO3, the better team always wins. It requires a significantly more amount of prep, especially in that map ban phase where teams can really punish each other.
Now, we should just clarify, because there are 3 spots being given directly to Brazilian teams from this playoff bracket. If you make the grand final, you are qualified for phase 2. It does not matter how that game goes, whether you win or lose it, you will still go to phase 2 and you will skip out on phase 1 completely. If you make the semifinals and you lose, you still have the opportunity to qualify, but it will be through phase 1, and then a 4th Brazilian team will also qualify through phase 1 by way of the last chance qualifier. So there will be 2 Brazilian teams in phase 1, 2 in phase 2. This is just the fast track to being able to do it. So the advantage for both Liquid and W7M is only needing to win 1 best of 3 before going into that grand final, because again, once you make it to the very end of that road, you don't have to win the last game to still go to Denmark.
Yeah, you can find the fine line between saving strats and maybe going for the top seed, but when you're going into a major, having the 1 seed should be significantly better, especially in that phase 2 switch system, which I'm really excited to be implemented in towards Siege. And trying to get into phase 3, that's where all the money is, that's where the crowd is, the excitement, the adrenaline, and I don't think any of these teams are going to want to miss it.
So we have to ask this question to wrap up our group stage. Even though it might be a little bit barbed, it's not quite a toxic take level question, but I just want to know what you think, because every single region is playing in best of 1s prior to playoffs. Even though some regions don't have best of 1s right now, where do you think you rate Brazil in terms of regionally in the world? Are they still top 3? Do you think they crack into top 2? Does NA take a bit of a back seat? Does Brazil rise up, or are they kind of falling down in your opinion? Where do you rank Brazil as a region based on just their best of 1 play?
With just their best of 1 play, I think they might be rivaling NA, and that really hurts me to say,
Yeah,
especially because NA has just gone absolutely crazy. I feel like I'm plunging my own knife into my own chest as I'm saying this, but there's not really a top dog defined out in NA right now. So many of the teams have shuffled around. It might take a small phase to adjust, but now we've seen for Brazil, the top dogs are re-emerging once again. W7M was on top. They lost some key players, but guess what? They're still good. Liquid was right on the fringe. They're bouncing back. They're hitting form. This might be the best Liquid we've ever seen.
Probably the best Liquid. W7M, whether it's the best team or a similar form to the team that went all the way to the grand finals of the 6th Invitational, is a much different story. But I do agree. It looks like the teams that are typically at the top of Brazil are still at the top, even if there's a little hiccup or 2 here or there before they actually confirm those spots. We are done with best of 1s. Best of 3s on the horizon starting up next Friday. So please be sure to be there for the knockout stage of the Brazil League. On behalf of everybody who works on the English broadcast, we're happy to have moved you through one part of this league and into the next one starting next week. He's Connor. I'm Jacob. Gibson and Whippet were the casters. Thanks very much, and we'll see you for the playoffs starting next week.